is up, everyone? What is up? Sorry, I am a little late today. Had some technical difficulties. Once again, it was the Windows box that does the streaming over here, 2PC setup. That was the issue, but it was not actually Windows' fault this time. My UPS died, and I actually shocked myself trying to replace this. So I had to grab my backup UPS, which means now I have to go to Micro Center to get a new backup UPS. This is my lower end one. It wasn't my big boy one. That one would have been a pain in the ass to replace comparatively. I have a bigger one for, the main PC over there. But, still not as shocking as probably Hasan's dog got shocked by that collar, huh? I don't know if you've kept up with that little drama of going around and everything. So I got to dispose of that properly. Actually, I have a couple more. How can I convince a friend to get off of Windows 10? Oh, so there will be a video. I actually have a video. I finished scripting it. I recorded it. I just got to edit it. There's going to be 2 videos for sure that are coming out. The first one is literally about the death of Windows 10 and what you can do. The second one is about gaming on Linux. I touch on gaming on Linux and Windows 10 is dead, talking about that, but the main crux of it is on the gaming on Linux video. But the Windows 10 is dead, and what you should do now is the first video I'm going to be releasing out of those 2. I have 2 more videos I also have planned to record. I have the long overdue DEF CON recap video. I've written the script for that for a while. I just have been so burnt out for the past few weeks that I haven't been around to record it. And then I got to do the recap of GERCON. Both the DEF CON and GERCON ones won't have too many pictures because hacker conferences generally don't have too many pictures. It's a whole privacy thing, but it'll be more story-driven, but a lot of background info. The pictures that I do have will probably be of the equipment I brought with me. I'll take pictures, how I carried things around and all that. GitHub did a bad. Are we talking about the security researcher that got kicked off for some harmless Linux trolling? Yeah, I paid attention to that drama too. So, yeah. But what's everyone doing? Sup, Vampire? But yeah, apologies to some of my editors and mods. I had to rearrange everything a little bit because the UPS is right in the smack, in the hardest place. So I still have to adjust everything. I have to clean off my entire desk. I've known I need to do that for a while. Hopefully I'll have time to do that this weekend. You disable Linux animations, makes everything faster. Well, the reality is that's more of a perception thing. Animations make things feel faster, but in reality, it's just the animation going around. Same thing with Windows. That's just how it is. I know there were a lot of registry edits back in the days to disable it. Starting stream right as YouTube is borked. Wait, what? Is YouTube having issues? I hope not. I like how you can find apps easily. Just type it in, need a book reader, and bam! Yeah, that's the great thing about Linux. It's a lot easier than people actually believe, especially when I throw them in front of a lot of Linux computers today, and I still stand by the statement. If you have a person, especially if they're going into tech, they don't know anything about Mac, Windows, or Linux. Just pretend they're, a Luddite, or pretend they were in a coma since the 1990s, all right? And they just got out. And they're wanting to, get into IT. Or, using an operating system. Linux is actually easier to wrap your head around than Windows is. And I stand by that statement because I want you to think about how complex it is for Windows to be administrated, used on the daily, and all the things you go through. And for all of you that are like, on Linux you may have to use the command line. I still have to use the command line once in a while on Windows. But there's a lot of things locked behind the magic blue smoke box of voodoo magic that Windows has that they still don't have documented. My airport near me just got their PA system hacked. Oh boy. Ooh. Got details on that. I'd be interested. Wait, let me check down detector. Is YouTube down? Holy shit! Yeah! All of Google is reporting issues. Ironically, I am streaming to YouTube right now, among Twitch and Kick, TikTok, Twitch, YouTube. Yeah, I'm on all those platforms. So if one platform goes derp, you can go on another one. There's been another platform I was asked to look at. Let me see if I can pull that up for you. I think it was stream.place, which is an experimental thing. It was kind of interesting to look at. So this is stream.place. Now the interesting thing about this is that this stream, this allows you to be, this is using the AT protocol, the same protocol that Blue Sky is on. So I think the idea is, yeah, you log in with your Blue Sky handle and you can do all that jazz. There's not many people on it because it's like really new. I know some of you are going to say, when PeerTube? Well, PeerTube, the problem that I have with it is, I don't have any problems with the platform itself. It's that it's another platform that I'd have to federate to. And then on top of it, if I were to use PeerTube and put videos on it, there's not an easy way for me to grab my past videos. So I may experiment with this. I got to do some math and calculations to see, do I have enough overhead on the GPU and the network side. But this is also where I'm starting to, you know, lean into. Not only do I want to get at least a 4 or 5 series GPU for AV1 encoding for the streaming, I was thinking at least a 5050. But I may want to get a 5070 specifically so I can get dual NVENC encoders. So that allows me a lot more breathing room when doing streaming. Because you can, I know you can do 8 NVENC streams per NVENC encoder that they have, but it's a lot more overhead that, you know, is eased up there. Because I'm just going to check something. If I open up the task manager, how much is my GPU being used? Let's see, performance. Yeah, just right now, I'm using 74% of my 3050's NVENC encoding. So I feel like I could probably squeeze one more stream, but I'm kind of getting to the limit of it. On another note, I don't know if any of you have been in the Discord and paid attention to, I've been increasing my foray into radio, and I actually managed to catch some good convos on some of the HF bands from several states away. So let me see if I can get that video pulled up. Gonna pipe that audio into the system here. Okay. And by the way, if you want to join the Discord, the links are in the bio and such, or you can always go to discord.chiefgeek3d.com. So this is the video I put up in the Radiohead's channel, and pull that up. You can see that's my radio in there. I'll eventually have a video on my ham shack and everything. Right now, I need to sit down and set everything up. Right now, I've just been tinkering. I know I can get a better antenna set up and all that. That's a spring and summer project. I have a good enough antenna. I fell off a ladder for, you know, my radio, but this is what I actually picked up at 7.2 megahertz.
Just sit here and listen, enjoy the show. K4NWA. It's the T-Down, these two guys are this man. And at 811, man, you're 30 over here, Floyd. Yeah, he does.
It was pretty active.
Heavy on the low end, horse. Is that what you're talking about? It just sounds like he doesn't have any high.
So, yeah. That was people from several states away. I made a few contacts as well. from several states. My furthest point that I've reached has been Canada. I forgot where in Canada. I'd have to look at my logbook. But I've also hit Maine. So that was kind of interesting. So, yeah, radio's been a very, very fun thing. I will get Meshtastic set up. I already have a Meshtastic device, but I'm going to get my solar node set up with Meshtastic probably this weekend. And then eventually I will be setting up an MQTT gateway. So the idea is I'm going to take one of these Raspberry Pis, like this Pi 4 2GB, and I'm going to, plug this into my network, and I'm going to then get a LilyGo T-Beam, is the device I'm looking at, and connect it to this guy over USB, and I'm going to set it up as an MQTT gateway over here, then use the LilyGo T-Beam as a Meshtastic device, which then I'll put a better antenna on, and I want to get it as close as possible. I may put it like in the attic or something like that, but so that I can then hit the solar node outside, and the idea is that MQTT gateway will then open up for all the people that want to, broadcast over the internet and everything like that, using MQTT with Meshtastic, so they can reach other Meshtastic users coming out of gateway. I'm of course going to VLAN and segment that network because, yeah. But, that's going to be a thing. Have you watched Mr. Robot? Of course I've watched Mr. Robot. The first season of Mr. Robot is the best. Then it goes downhill because apparently people were very scared that it actually was giving real information about cybersecurity, and that freaked people out. Particularly law enforcement authorities. They're always afraid of people actually learning about how the world actually works. But yeah, DeepSeek tells Windows is better because of kernel level anti-cheat. Are you trolling me, Mindo? That's not a reason to say something's better. That's like saying, my wife is better because I, let her go and it's going to apply to a husband too. But they go sleep with as many people as, they really want, and I'm just okay with it. For some people that might be okay, but I think the majority of us go, yeah, that ain't right. Back to the analogy that Dr. Louis DeWeaver basically said when I was listening to his speech at GERCON, kernel level access, even when it comes to security software, makes no sense. It's like saying, I'm sick, doctor, help me figure it out, and the doctor saying, well, I need access to your wife. Any time of the day, for any reason that I want. Makes no sense. Almost changing to Linux, but I'm kind of afraid. I don't know. Everyone's always afraid of change in the unknown. But try it. You might actually be surprised. You might actually like it. Something new. It's like, when people are in a bad relationship. That's what Windows really is. Windows is the abusive relationship that people are so afraid of leaving because, like, what if I'm on my own and all that? And you don't realize just how good it is without that abusive partner. And Windows is an abusive partner. Look at what they do with your data. And the more and more encroachments they're doing just to sell you more ads and everything like that. Look at what Microsoft is doing to Xbox and the gaming community. What's up? Your crypto option worked. Raspberry private VPN. Cryptos and cryptography, I'm hoping. Do you have experience setting up TPM on vSphere to migrate 10 to 11 VMs? I do not. I haven't really done Windows VMs in a long time. Windows 11 VM specifically. Well, Windows pretty much in general. Outside of just running on my local machine. And, well, there is when I run them in AWS and Azure. We do virtual desktops. I don't think the FTPM really applies here. There's probably plenty of guides on it. I just haven't dealt with it. Is your YouTube bugged? No, everybody's YouTube is bugged. I'll show you. This is the down detector right now. Look at that. YouTube, YouTube Music, YouTube TV, Google. But what's interesting is T-Mobile is experiencing the same spike at the same time. Everyone... Did AWS US East go down? Well, no, it can't, because Google's doing that. So there's probably something bigger, because, look, everybody's having issues at the same time. Oh, TikTok's apparently getting an uptick right now. Netflix's, AWS, Cloudflare. Is there something going on network-wide? Chief says invest in Monero. Yes. In Monero we trust. That is not investment advice. I just have always liked Monero as a project, period. We're under attack. DDoS, who dis? I don't know if it's a DDoS, because that would be really weird for everybody. I mean, Cloudflare's having issues, AT&T's having issues, Verizon, Spectrum. Now, granted, these are all user-reported, so take it with a grain of salt. Ooh, even Starlink is reporting. Hulu's peaking up. I'm wondering if there's a BGP or some kind of trunk issue or things like that. How can I scrub my data from the Ledger data leak? I keep getting scammers targeting me. Welcome to the club! Well, not really. My data wasn't really leaked. The only thing they actually got from my leak was one of my old emails I used. And that was years ago. No, when your data's leaked, you're boned. So let me put it this way, and I've said this before to other people, but this is a harsh lesson. It's always better to be proactive than reactive. By the time you're reacting to a cyber incident, it's pretty much too late. So I do use, other tools to scrub data and all that, but I'm also careful about what data I put out there. And there's a big reason why I recommend, yes, I am sponsored by them, but I do like their product, Proton. They have a product called Simple Login, which I really love. And you could also use Simple Login for free on any email service, just so you know, for up to 10 different aliases. But with Proton's premium plan, which I do use, you can have an infinite amount of aliases. So pretty much, when you pair it with Proton Pass, you can have not only a different password for every single account, but a different email alias for every single account. But they all go back to the same email. And if that account ever gets compromised or gets a little bit too spammy, you can shut down that alias. Yeah, go to Delete Me too. I'm affiliated with Delete Me. Links in bio for that. And for the Proton stuff. Look, I only recommend stuff I actually use, and I've used both of these products longer than I have actually been making content. But I also talk about products that I don't get affiliated with that I just think are genuinely good, so. Came to TikTok because YouTube is down. Well, that's why I'm on 4 different streams. Why you never badmouth Mac OS? Are you new here? Mac OS is one self-burn. Where's my door stop? Oh, here it is. Here's my door stop. My old MacBook. Seriously, this was probably the last acceptable MacBook line I would probably go with. It's the one that actually let you upgrade the RAM and the hard drive, and you could replace a DVD drive, and it was somewhat repairable. Somewhat. But no, I literally started the joke of the cult of Mac on TikTok a while ago. I am a scorned Apple user. I'm not an Apple hater, because there are people out there that just hate on Apple, even though they've never really used Apple. I'm a scorned Apple user. I used to like them. I used to deploy Xserve. I used to deploy entire Apple shops where, Apple could do everything, especially back in the G5 era. But then they started soldering things. And, well, actually, before that was when they switched over to Intel from PowerPC. They should have stayed with PowerPC. But they never adjusted their thermal designs to accommodate for x86, so a bunch of Mac users kept blaming Intel for overheating, when it was really Apple didn't listen to their thermal guidelines. Like, case in point. What's this MacBook missing? I'm giving you a hint by looking at the, pointing at the bottom. I'll give you a hint. Here's my new laptop from Tuxedo. What's this one got on the bottom that the other doesn't? Venting. All of your intake and exhaust is literally just that tiny little slit, maybe tiny little things there. No, this had a fan. But it was choking badder than my asthmatic ass in a smoker's lounge. So they were good before? That's crazy. Oh, yeah, Apple used to be the shit. They were the computer that I would recommend. Oh, you want to do gaming? Get a Mac. Oh, you want to do art? Get a Mac. Oh, you're doing music? Get a Mac. Oh, you're doing business? Get a Mac. Like, seriously, they were the everything machine. And a lot of people that are like, wait, you used to recommend Mac for gaming? Yes, there was a time Apple was an amazing gaming machine. The G4 Cube was unmatched. I like the G5s because they had those fun colors. MacBooks are so terrible nowadays. I remember when they were good. Oh yeah, they used to be good. And Apple's just crapping on itself with this whole Mac OS, what are they calling it, 26? Because now they're having, you know, they're making the numbers the same. Mac OS 26, iOS 26, they're just unifying it. Apple gaming, like in 70s maybe. Apple was not around in the 70s, if I recall. Apple's basically been an 80s to present company. They had their decline in the 90s. Well, they were in late 70s. But they had their decline in the 90s. And then when they fired Steve Jobs, and then they hired him back after he was doing Next Step Computer. When was the multicolor Apple? I think that was the G5s I'm talking about. Those were the pretty computers that, you know, everyone wanted to play with the art on in school. Remember the Apple desktop with the color backs? Yeah, that's the G5s we're talking about. Maybe the G3s too. Hold on. Apple G5. Maybe I was wrong. No, maybe it was the G3. Yeah, it was the G3s. The iMac G3s. These guys. They looked sweet. Especially in an era where it was dominated by beige boxes. Like, you could see inside the electronics. That 90s translucent electronic aesthetic. We need to bring that back. I miss being able to look at my electronics, like my Nintendo 64 controller with, you know, all the little gadgets and, you know, sticks and things in there. Y'all remember the, oh yeah, that. What's your thoughts on the M1 chips? They're overpriced. That's my thought, seriously. They're not a bad CPU per se, they're overpriced for what they are. Seriously. Apple needs to cut that price on almost their entire line by a third. And then it would actually be a decent value. But also the M series CPUs, they don't run everything. I know a lot of people are like, well, they have Rosetta and it's compatibility. I've run into so many issues just at work where devs were, you know, not able to do things that, you know, normally should function on an M series CPU. The problem is Apple is a luxury product. They're not really a business product anymore. They're not even like, and when I say business, like, I mean like even personal business. Apple used to be the computer that I'm like, oh, you're a graphic designer. Get a Mac. Musician? Get a Mac. You know, 3D designer? Get a Mac. CAD CAM? Get a Mac. You know, that was the everything machine that I used to recommend to everybody. But now I know so many graphic designers that literally can't function on Mac because it's too expensive for the specs and it's anemic for the price. And for those of you that are like, well, my Mac flies, spend the same amount of money on a Mac that you would on a tower. Not even a build your own tower, like a pre-made tower. One of their Mac towers. Now, spend that same money on a laptop. Like this laptop here, it's a little expensive at $2,500, but it's got a Ryzen 7 8845HS, 8 cores, 16 threads. It's got 96 gigabytes of memory, 2 terabyte NVMe. I can fit a second one in there. It's got an NVIDIA 4070 in here as well. And I can flip between AMD and NVIDIA GPU graphics. And that price, by the way, included a 3-year warranty. Getting my image added on there, that's not a sticker. That is actually from the factory. Like it's like silked on or lasered on. And they even customized the keyboard with my logo on the super key. That was all in $2,500. What does $2,500 on a Mac get you? Yeah, I like it. Because also, if somebody ever takes this laptop, that's going to be really hard to explain why you have a penguin there, or why you scratch the hell out of it to hide it. Yeah, I like Tuxedo computers. The Rumble Pack. You weren't shit if you had a Rumble Pack. Everyone had a Rumble Pack in N64. It was peak. Okay, so $2,500 a Mac gets, what does it get you? A keyboard? No. It gets you the wheels for your Mac Pro. Is Proton still safe? Did they move their servers? Proton's been safe for a while. Like, I still use Proton and everything. I know there was the whole chat control thing. I gotta check on that. I think we had a majority. Yeah, Europe postponed the chat control vote. They delayed chat control law over privacy concerns. It's still alive, though, as a controversial idea, so we can't let up on that. Is YouTube down still? Probably. Don't be hating on Tim Cook because of his orientation. I don't give a crap if you like men or women or, you know, anything else. I don't care about that. I've been hating on Apple longer than Tim Cook was actually, you know, running the company. What's wrong with YouTube? Apparently there's outages on multiple services right now. Oh, who made that laptop that I showed? That's Tuxedo Computers. So, I like Tuxedo Computers. System 76, they make my operating system, Pop OS, by the way. Even though I'm not running on their hardware right now, my laptop from them from a few years ago, I just replaced the battery on. That's when I run Parrot OS when I'm doing some cybersecurity research and tinkering and education stuff, like ethical hacking. There's also Nova Custom, which I do want to get one of their computers. I hear really great things. That'll probably be replacing the other brand that I, you know, liked at a point in time. Purism. It's not that I hate Purism. It's just they haven't really developed new hardware in a few years, and they're still selling new laptops with 10th gen CPUs. And if I'm going to buy a new laptop, I want a newer CPU than a 10th gen CPU. For my, even if it's for my Cubes laptop. Still runs fine. Didn't know Tim Cook is, yeah, he's very low-key about it, but he is definitely out. Just tried to use a torrent with free Proton and VPN enabled, but it said P2P traffic detected connection disabled. What VPN won't rat me out to my ISP? They don't really, but Proton doesn't, from what I recall. There's no free VPN that is really going to allow you to use torrenting, and if they do, I raise an eyebrow. Here's the reason why. Serving data costs money. Plain and simple. A lot of people overwhelmingly use VPNs. Many of us for legitimate reasons, for business. I use it like to poke around from different sites in the world to see what connections look like. But overwhelmingly, a lot of people that use these consumer VPN products, they are using it to do BitTorrent and things like that. They're not against BitTorrent. It's on the free tier. I mean, it's on the paid tier, not free tier. Molvad is the same way. You can use Molvad. I like Molvad. But it's going to be the same thing. You have to pay them. The reality is you have to accept that if a product is free and gives you all the features, what are you really giving up? Because you're probably the product. Now, if companies have a free tier of a product, that can go either way. I know for a fact Proton, on their free tier, doesn't really affect it. And they open source all their stuff, too. You can go get their VPN client. So, if you're doing torrenting, and you're wanting to look for a free VPN, maybe you should cough up a few bucks for the people that are delivering your data. And if you don't know how much data costs, oh, it's a lot of money when you talk about these servers with even 1 gig by 1 gig connections in a data center, where a data center doesn't just have one ISP provider. They usually have 3 to 4 coming in over fiber. And then they have rows upon rows of all these servers. Doesn't matter if you're RGB or a vegan, it matters who you are, a person. Exactly. I don't care if you're black, white, pink with purple polka dots, gay, straight, lesbian. I don't give a crap. I don't care if you're a dude or a dudette. I don't care. But just to be clear, if anyone, flags me on that, I do use dude, often in the gender neutral sense. He's a dude, she's a dude, we're all dudes. Well, TikTok found out I'm in my own country if I run a VPN. Yeah, because you already logged into your account on TikTok probably before, where they're actually going to figure out, oh, you're actually in this country. And the fact that when you set up your account, it went through those countries' servers. I need an upgrade, it's time. I want my next PC to be everything, and I mean everything. Well, if you want to build it yourself, that's cool. You can do a lot with that. If you want to buy Tuxedo Computers or System 76, but Tuxedo Computers is from Germany, I don't know what the tariff situation's like, whereas System 76 is based out of Colorado. I do think there's still exemptions for like laptops and other electronics when it comes to tariffs. I'm not entirely sure on that. It's so crazy right now, knowing what is and what is not. You want to build all your own machines? That's fine. I would probably go with AMD CPU and NVIDIA. I would go with an NVIDIA GPU because of the workload I need uses CUDA, but an AMD GPU is just fine for most things. Thoughts on the unplugged cell phone? Snake oil. Like, it is serious crap snake oil. I made a TikTok video about that a long time ago. I haven't made a YouTube video about it. But the unplugged phone, what was the other anonymous phone that I came across that was, Zero Trace, I think it was called, was snake oil. The unplugged phone, look up who makes it. Look up who is the main guy behind it. Then look up, is the code open source? Hint? It's not. The unplugged phone is basically just a phone that they've bought that's not even their own hardware, that they're just selling at a marked up price. The problem is there's a lot of the everyday consumers that think that buying a product will make them private. They think that's the silver bullet to their privacy. But in reality, those are the most gullible people because they will buy everything and anything believing that it actually will help them in privacy, when in reality, privacy is more of a mindset thing. Yes, there are tools to help you in privacy, but I can give you Graphene OS on a Pixel, And if you're doing things on it to, like, give away your data and all that, that's not really going to help you. You have more controls with Graphene OS than stock Android because Google is a snitch. But, yeah. The unplugged phone, pretty much snake oil. Zero Trace, same thing. The Trump phone, they're all in the same category as far as I'm concerned. Snake oil meant to go after the most gullible population that usually wears tinfoil on their hats, believing that they're actually important enough to, have somebody usually go after them for their data, when in reality, no, it's not. And most of you that are actually getting hacked are because you actually had your data leak in something else in your low-hanging fruit that actually got popped through some automated or programmatically designed, compromises. You're probably reusing the same password, or your passwords are tied to your LinkedIn or not LinkedIn, your Facebook and, all your social media, and it's probably related to your dog's name, your children, your family. And from looking at your pictures, you can kind of figure it out and figure out, oh, it's probably, tied to this guy's sports team or something like that. What about different PCOSs? What about it? I can, again, install Linux. Linux does give you more control over privacy because it's not snitching on you like Windows is. Mac doesn't do it nearly as much. But with Linux, you have more controls over, the data and telemetry. But even then, the statement still applies. If you go on, your computer, regardless of what operating system it is, and give away your data, that's on you. There's nothing I can really... Like, the analogy I give to people is this. I can build you a castle. I can put turrets. We can have archers in the top, mortars. I can have a drawbridge, moat with alligators, piranhas, you name it. But if you lower that drawbridge, ain't nothing I do gonna help you. Data's been leaked so much you can buy it. Yeah, I actually did a video on YouTube where I was talking about how there was a data broker that is actually selling data that was stolen from other compromises, that basically PIs and, divorce attorneys or exes or whatever can then buy this information and use it. Is Linux hard to learn? I have to take it next semester. No, I'd actually say Linux is easier to learn than Windows. Especially if you're doing it from an IT side, because here's the thing. And I'm going to have a video on YouTube that actually goes into this. With Windows, to manage the operating system, you have to do what? Understand registry editors, group policies, MMC snap-ins. You've got to learn about, the control panel, all these different systems just to manage desktops. Just to manage the desktops. We're not even talking the server side. That's even more. Because then you're talking about Active Directory and everything like that. Do you know what you really only need in most cases on Linux to configure, tweak, and, modify your system? A text editor. That's it. Any text editor of your choice. Because everything is a file. A readable file. Except for binaries. That's a whole other thing, of course. But, yeah. Have you heard about the guy who was able to get some data through a satellite dish, Chief? People have been using satellite dishes for years as antennas and stuff like that. Even I used it as a Wi-Fi antenna for a really directional antenna. Which, by the way, you can get a good 30 kilometers by directing a satellite dish with the right modifications pointed in any particular direction, but it's, of course, a very, very focused beam. That was definitely a interesting little project out of boredom my friends and I did. Who uses Windows server side? Don't be ridiculous. Every single business, pretty much. Do you think I'm kidding? Go ask the professionals. Small businesses may have, it's not Windows Small Business Server, but yeah, Active Directory. Things like that. People need to have centralized control, and most people do it through Active Directory. Now it's starting to switch to Intune, but yeah. Didn't the entire world stop last year because of Windows? No, that was because of CrowdStrike. And kernel level access. Which, as I said before on video games, no video game should have kernel level anti-cheat. But I've even hardened my stance further and said, I don't think security software should have kernel level access. I think Windows needs to, seal that up. In Linux, it's open source, so you could definitely do that if you want. But you'd have to install it and consent to it. That's a whole other thing. There are kernel modules that people hook in all the time for different features, like different file systems that may not be supported with kernel out of the box, or NVIDIA is actually not built into the kernel, so you're actually installing the driver to hook into the kernel with kernel modules. I worked in Amazon, they had Linux. And Amazon is also hosting a bunch of Windows servers. We used Amazon to host a bunch of our Windows stuff. Yeah. The reality is most of the business world is still running on Windows. Now, there may be a lot of the front-facing things in terms of, servers to deliver a lot of these data or even host the Windows servers that are running Linux. As is the case at work, the hypervisors running all of the Windows servers happen to be Linux. But they're using Linux to host their Windows. I heard you can max it out with... Chief, can I get piranhas and lava for that castle? Sure, buddy. They fixed YouTube, it runs again for now. So let's get into... What the hell did, you guys send me? So let's see. Some of my community sent me some videos to check out.
Your text and internet traffic could be read by anyone with $800 and a few spare hours. This new study that came out today is alarming. Researchers from the University of San Diego and the University of Maryland found that nearly half of all geostationary satellite signals are unencrypted. What data?
Not surprising me. So I know I'm pausing this early on. That's not surprising to me. I've known this, and a lot of people in the amateur radio, also known as ham community, we know this. How do we know this? We can listen in on radio communications. But yeah, this isn't surprising. This is just surprising to a lot of
some text
regular
and phone
people.
Calls on certain provider networks. I'm looking at you, T-Mobile. Internet traffic, communications with offshore infrastructure like oil rigs, and military communications like sensitive information, guys. So how did they figure this out?
Yep.
They bought $800 of commercial off-the-shelf hardware that you can just buy. They put together a single dish.
Yep.
And they pointed it at the sky, the little tiny piece of space that they could see from Southern California. So not even the whole sky. And here's what they found. A significant number of phone numbers, text messages, and calls sent over T-Mobile's network. Internet traffic, particularly when you're browsing in-flight Wi-Fi. Sensitive communications with offshore infrastructure like oil rigs. And even more sensitive military.
Is there any way to secure it? Yeah, just use encryption.
Facilities and equipment locations. As somebody who has worked in intelligence, what the hell? And it's not just the US by any means. The Mexican data leaks were actually a lot worse. In addition to all of the communications and internet data that we've already talked about, just on a much larger scale, they also found a lot of intelligence information on narcotics trafficking. Now, is anyone doing anything about it? So they've contacted the companies and government organizations that have these data lakes. And again, they only looked at a small portion of the sky. So the bigger problem is unquantifiable at the moment. They've contacted all these organizations and they've had some luck, but not all. Like, some companies are just flat out denying the claims. And I'm just sitting here like, what the fuck?
Yeah, this is not really news to a lot of us that have been in the radio community. We've talked about this actually for years. It's just now leaking out into the mainstream. Now, there have been different reasons I've heard, not that I know that any of these are true, as to why they do this. One, it could be laziness, which is definitely a big reason for a lot of unencrypted and insecure systems, period. The other reason is cryptography usually requires, if you're doing a transmission for a constant stream and too many disruptions, cause issues. So with unencrypted data, you can potentially fix that a little bit more. I know there's nuance to that. There's different cryptographic algorithms that you can use and different ways to do error checking and all of that. But also, some of these satellites that are up there are really old. Like, yeah. Does that include telephone carriers too? They just said T-Mobile and stuff. But yeah, it's not surprising in the least. When you get into amateur radio, you realize just how much is openly broadcasted, period, you can start picking up on. Especially on the HF side of things. And I was just put on to the architect at work, the Air Force. I gotta ask him again what that resource was so I can look it up. The Air Force does unencrypted radio transmissions. They're not like fully unencrypted. This is the other thing where they're missing the nuance. There is a lot of military comms that are unencrypted in terms of transmission, but they are conveying message encrypted, often through a one-time pad, as it's called. But it's verbally done. It's not electronically done. Does that make sense? And a one-time pad is a reasonable secure encryption, but it's a whole other thing. But you can actually listen into... Yeah, you can actually listen to Air Force one-time pad transmissions. And the reason why he knows this is he was in the Air Force. I'm gonna have to ask him what it was, what that network was called. We talk radio all the time. But yeah, there is unencrypted communications done by military that are done verbally through encryption. Like with one-time pad and things like that. It's not as simple as like a Caesar cipher or things like that. But a one-time pad here, is a theoretically unbreakable encryption. Basically, you're using a secret key, and it's generated randomly, and it's as long as the message. But one-time pad is called one-time pad because it's used only once and then discarded. So, let's see if I can get an example for you. One-time pad cipher example. Let's see if I can find one. Let's see if I can find a video that'll actually explain it. There we go. Because this is actually a really interesting but confusing concept that I actually learned a couple of years ago. Are you encrypting yourself as we watch you and padding us? No. I mean, my transmissions are encrypted through TLS SSL, but that's most of the internet now. So let's see.
Hello and welcome.
I haven't seen this guy before, so we'll see what this is about.
I'm going to cover broadly what encryption is, and specifically I'm going to cover an example of an encryption scheme called the one-time pad. So first off, let's start off by explaining what encryption is with an example where you'd want to actually use it. Let's say you have three people, Alice, Eve, and Bob. Alice wants to give Bob a message, but doesn't want Eve to be able to read it. One way that this could be achieved is for Alice to lock the message in a box and give the key to that lock only to Bob.
Okay.
That way, even if Eve intercepts the box, she can't actually read the message because she doesn't have the key.
Unless she can pick the
Encryption,
lock.
this analogy is the process that we use to lock the box in a way to keep Eve out while still allowing Bob and Alice to easily access it. Encryption is used by most websites and apps to keep your data from being easily taken and read by malicious people.
Right.
Now let's take a look at a real encryption protocol called the one-time pad.
There we go. That's what I was going to
Basic idea
fast forward
behind
through the video.
one-time pad is to not only have the locked box with a message inside of it, but instead to cut the message up into pieces and put each piece in its own box. That way, Eve now has to have all of the keys to access the message instead of just the one. The one-time pad takes us to the extreme by taking each individual letter of a message and encrypting it, or putting it into a box, as opposed to just taking smaller and smaller pieces of it. Now enough with the metaphor. Let's take a look at how it really works in practice. Let's say that Alice wants to send Bob the message, hello. Since the one-time
Enigma
pad works by
encryption's
doing
been
some math,
been broken years ago.
we will need numbers and not letters to encrypt the message. Luckily, we can use a system called ASCII, which assigns each character an equivalent number. So for example, the uppercase H is the number 72, and vice versa. Here is the number representation for hello using ASCII. On top of this, as some of you will know, computers represent numbers using a system called binary. This basically takes a number and represents it with ones and zeros. In the interest of time, I won't cover how to do these conversions in the video, so you'll have to take my word that the conversions that I've done are correct, as the ability to do these conversions isn't the focus of this particular video.
Right.
So, here's where the real fun begins. The pad in the one-time pad refers to a bunch of randomly generated text that's the same length as the text that you want to encrypt. Typically, it's generated through a random number generation system, which then converts each.
Yeah, there's a ton of ways to do that through radiation and a bunch of other stuff.
Text. In our case, since our text hello is 5 characters, we'll need 5 randomly generated characters. I've generated lowercase u, capital B, capital V, comma, and semicolon. This will be our pad for the examples. Now, here's where the math comes in. For each letter in our original text and in our pad, we can go through and do a procedure called...
And this is the kind of open-air encryption that a lot of military comms have actually been using.
Which can then be turned into a letter.
I've been told this by a former Air Force guy that's a radio guy,
The
too.
resulting text from this the ciphertext. And in our case, that's equals, single tick, colon, @ capital T. The important thing is that the XOR procedure can be reversed by using the pad and the ciphertext to give us back our original message. This means that we can send Bob the ciphertext and not care if Eve reads it, because only he can decrypt or unlock it with the pad. So, let's say we're Bob, and we want to decrypt the ciphertext we've been given using the pad that we were given. First, convert each letter to a number again, and then we go one by one and convert each decimal number to a binary number in order to XOR it. Basically, XOR just means that when you line up 2 binary numbers and go column by column, wherever one number has a 1 and the other has a 0, put a 1. Otherwise, put a 0. The resulting binary number...
Yeah, I know this is confusing.
So, here is the result of
But
XOR.
I do know that
Ciphertext
one-time pad is a
and
very
pad.
secure way of doing
As you
encryption.
can
I just
see,
haven't done it
it's
much.
the original plaintext. So hopefully that all made sense, and now you understand how the one-time pad works. Thanks for watching.
So, like I said, it's a one-time pad. So, for people that are like, military comms are unencrypted, some of those comms are open because, let's think of this situation. This is a real situation. Where do they get the pad? I have to ask my buddy how they actually do that. I think there's different ways that they use it, and they have it transmitted. But there are use cases for why they want to do this, because you can have encrypted radio, for sure. But what if you're in a situation where you don't have access to an encrypted radio, but you still need to transmit or receive comms? But yeah, one-time pad, it is actually used on open broadcasts. Now, as far as T-Mobile not using encryption, that I don't know why they're doing. Well, If they're using old-fashioned... Well, here's the thing. RCS does not have encryption by default. Encryption is an option in RCS, but encryption is mandatory in iMessage. Now, a lot of people that happen to be using, Google Messages on, like, your Pixel, that has encryption, it's not always encrypting the message to another RCS receiver. Like, my understanding is, if you're an Android user and you message an iPhone user, you're not using the encrypted form of RCS. But then also, there's a lot of Android phones that don't use the encrypted version of RCS, so you're going to send an unencrypted message and receive an unencrypted message. RCS is not the default encryption is not the default standard inside of RCS. And then regular plain old-fashioned SMS and MMS are definitely not encrypted. But also television signals are not encrypted. There's been this whole debate about ATSC3 and requiring encryption and all that. We've talked about in the past streams. But the FCC is even requesting comment and doesn't seem to be too favorable of it. But in order to intercept a lot of these communications, you have to be lined up perfectly. So it's not like you can just be anywhere in the world and then just point your dish and get every single satellite. Because the Earth is a globe. No, we are not flat earthers around here. The Earth is a globe. It's a fact, all right? This is enough for debate. Because of the curvature of the Earth, you're obviously not going to have line of sight to all the satellites. So, I think there's actually... Encrypting TV signals does not make much sense. It doesn't, unless you own the rights and want to DRM everything and pull content because you feel like it. They've been looking into that. The Earth is a pancake. Sure. Let me show satellites over me. Here. Let's see if this works. Okay, there we go. I believe this is most, if not all, of the satellites over the globe. Okay? Now, if you use a ham radio thing, you can, some ham radio tools will actually show you which ones you have comms with right now, but you can see they have a certain path. Oh, that's interesting. Okay, so you can see where that lighted area is. I believe that is... Yeah, so this is a Starlink. That is the area that they service. Let's grab another. So you see how you can, like, see certain ones? God damn, I did not realize how much Starlink satellites are up in the air. I mean, I knew there were a lot, but that's a little bit concerning. Can I find something that isn't a Starlink? Good God, people. Oh, come on. Is this really just all Starlink satellites? Elon's reach is terrifying. Yeah. I don't know why that... Oh. And you can see the inclination of these. So you can see if they're in retrograde, high, medium, low altitude. Equatorial means, well, they're really close to the ground. So I'm curious if I can find... This isn't just all the satellites. I think they're, for some reason, it's just... Oh yeah, that's just the Starlink map. That is concerning, though. Ah, here we go. Here we go. That's what I was looking for. GPS. Navstar. So GPS, obviously, you don't want that encrypted. Same with the Navstar over there. You got the Hubble telescope. Let's see. Object XJ from Tehran. Okay. We don't know what that's doing. And then we got... Why is it saying from Tehran? I don't know. Anyway, so there's the International Space Station. Looks like it's grouped with several other satellites, though. Oh, yeah. Because they're probably docked or something. You got Dragonfly. But yeah, you got satellites over you at any given point. So the point being, you're not going to have the ability to see all of them. They have to pass over you. Starlink lied about their percentage of ownership. Would not surprise me, it's Elon after all. Type in Galaxy 8. What? Galaxy 8 is right over... somewhere in Africa. I'm not the best at knowing where all the countries are. Like, I know that's South Africa. That's Egypt. That's Morocco. Because that's where my family's from. Oh. Launch site, Air Force Eastern Test Range. There you go. Air Force. Why is it doing Tehran? That's weird. Oh, because for some reason it's doing my location. Okay. That explains that. But why have it over Tehran of all places? Anyway. Been 2 days spamming Linux to the Windows users. Yeah, I'm pretty sure a lot of people have been doing that. Alright, HBX, what did you share me on TikTok?
And look up Larry Bouchard. Stop what you're doing right now and look up Larry Bouchard. Look it up right now.
Alright. Putting it over here just so that we don't have anything potentially NSFW, because I am not getting rickrolled or something. Okay. Arrested, accused of threatening... with making threats after Charlie Kirk unaliving to have December bond... Wait, what? I'm like, the reason why I'm going what is I'm like, what did he do? What did he say? Oh, he posted a Facebook meme? Hold up. A 61-year-old former police officer posted the offending meme last month. He got... he's on a $2 million bond for posting a somewhat uncivil meme on Facebook? Are you kidding me?
This is a man who is being held in prison on a $2 million bond, who is going to probably face years in prison because he posted a Facebook post.
Yeah, $2 million meme for memes.
Any type of post. A meme of our president. A factual meme of something that he said in 2024. And now... Hold up. This ex-cop...
What was the meme? What was the meme? Like, I'm curious. It's a First Amendment thing. Let's see. Okay, so apparently these were the memes. They need to release the Epstein files, change my mind. Tony, Charlie Kirk died. Who gives a shit is what he said. I'm just reading what they're saying, okay? I'm not saying this, just to make this very clear. Somebody's probably going to clip this and put it out of context, but yeah. And then Trump said, we have to get over it. Donald Trump on the Perry High School mass shooting one day after. I'm not seeing how any of these warrants a crime. Sure, you can disagree with, these memes being shared for whatever reason, and that is your right to do so. But I thought in this country, it's not a crime. Or as apparently, the First Amendment's not a thing anymore. Reminds me of what happened to Jimmy Kimmel. Yeah.
Is being held on a $2 million bond. Okay, so let's just pause there real quick. $2 million bond. Guys, there are murderers right now. Rapists. Terrible human beings who are not being held on a $2 million bond.
Yeah.
But Larry is for posting a meme. And now he faces potentially 1 to 6 years in prison.
For what?
This is just as bad as Charlie Kirk being shot for what he believed in. Okay? It's just as bad, because here's the thing.
So here's the thing. As much as you may disagree with Charlie Kirk, and I wouldn't really say I'm a fan of his either, if Charlie were alive today, he would be speaking out against what is happening here. Tell me I'm wrong. Tell me I'm wrong on that. As much as we would disagree with Charlie Kirk, I think he would actually be standing there saying the outrage about what happened after that event is ridiculous. Like, you can go around disagreeing with people, and that's been your right as an American. You can do whatever you want. You can say whatever you want, as long as you're not directly infringing the rights and liberties of another individual.
Citizens shooting American citizens over saying things they don't agree with is terrible.
Agreed.
But the state jailing citizens and putting them in jail over $2 million bonds over memes is just as bad. That.
Oh, absolutely. It's horrible.
Shitcoin that we're on right now. Look it up, and you tell me what you think and where this is leading to. But this is not.
So I already told you what I think, and I don't think it's leading to a good thing. Because I'm going to tell you this right now. And y'all have been in chat long enough to know I'm not a Republican or a Democrat. I despise pretty much all political parties, and I see the channel points for the giving my dog a treat. If the shoe were on the other foot, do you think if, like, Democrats were jailing people over what they say, Republicans would be okay with it? What I'm tired of when it comes to politics is the whataboutism, as well as people being okay when their team does it. Because I remember, in the early Obama years, they brought the nuclear option to bypass the 60-vote threshold, if I recall. And I said, this is going to be a problem, because once one side does it, they've set the precedent that the other side can use it. So you may have won the battle by doing something today, but you got to remember you've opened the can of worms of the other party coming in and doing the exact same thing for things you don't agree with. Anyway, moving on. Yeah. Oh, yeah. Poppers. Ari. You are Barack. Where's your brother? Ari! I mean, you'll get one too. Ari! Come here, boy! Ari! Come on, I got a treat for you. You don't want to come down? Whatever. Chev. Good boy. Oh, there you are. Here, boy. Here, your poppers. What's their name and breed? So Barack is an Old English sheepdog mixed with husky. And then Ari, come here. His full name is actually Ari. And no, he's not named after Barack Obama. Let me make that very clear. Where'd you go, Ari? Hey, poppers. Ari, come here. There you go. Good boy. So Ari is a Jack Russell Red Heeler mix. He's a good boy. All right. Yeah, I know. You like to lick everything. He's a very affectionate dog. They're both great dogs. Hey, the poppers. I don't. Good boys. Good boys. What? What? Bless you. What's up? What? 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 Oh. Yes, I love you too. Thank you for the hug. Thank you for the hug. You're pushing me away. Okay. Down. Good dog. Hey, you're getting the cable caught. Hey. And you know what's the best part? There's no shock collar on them, unlike Hasan Piker's dogs, apparently. Have y'all heard of that drama? Like, I'm not even, like, a guy that really watches his stuff, but it's, like, all over my feed. And it's, like, turned into such drama. Alright. What other videos did you guys send me? So HBX sent this video, Google kills num equals 100.
Google just quietly deleted something called num equals 100, and in doing so, it basically hid 90% of the internet. So
wait, what?
Num equals 100 is basically a tiny piece of code that shows systems the top 100 Google results, not just the top 10. When Google removed this, every tool in AI that relied on full search lost 90% of their access. Not 90% less spam, 90% everything. The smaller blogs, the niche research, and the valuable stuff that did not show up on the first page. It is a reminder that the internet is not a pure meritocracy. We thought great content was always going to rise to the top, but purely it relies on the algorithm at hand.
The internet actually didn't always rely on an algorithm. I remember at one point in time before Google actually existed, we had lists of people finding things on the internet. It was an art, similar to like radio now where you're hunting frequencies.
So, yeah, the internet didn't disappear, but Google made 90% of it invisible.
But yeah, vampire, yeah, that's what I heard and I saw as well, was Hasan Piker apparently shocked his dog, allegedly, I have to use that word, for getting out of place. And I remember years ago I used to pop in on his streams. I was never a long-time viewer. I'm not that kind of person that can like sit there for hours on end and all that. I never understood why a lot of people do that. You know, with certain streamers, but then again, he's got such a large audience or whatever. But I mean, to each their own. I'm not shaming anyone. I mean, come on, you guys are watching me. But I did find it weird how his dog was often there. He says, like, oh, the dog leaves often. I'm like, it's kind of weird when streamers are there hours on end and their dog is just laying there. Like, in a perfect position for the camera there, so they're kind of like a prop. Like, as I even said on Blue Sky and Mastodon, my dogs come over because they want to. You saw, they got a treat, they left. Sometimes my oldest dog will lay under my feet while I stream and likes to be a footrest as he rests there. I gotta clean out this area here. There's a few devices that I need to do so he can do it again. I'll probably get a bed down here for him now. But I've never once... I think the most negative training method I've used is a squirt bottle, a light smack on the butt, not like, you know, stinging my hand, just like, you know, just a little like that, or flicking the nose. But most of the time, you train a dog with positive reinforcement. The only time I've used negative reinforcement was like potty training. And there's different methods for it, but shock collars, no. No bueno. And he's like trying to play it off now. Like, oh, it was a vibrating collar, all this. And it's like, dude, we've had people do frame-by-frame analysis of what the collar looks like. You reached over and all this. Like, it's insane. Gotta go when you gotta go. Yeah, but when you're a puppy, you're a puppy. I'll have to watch this video for another day. Oh yeah. So the United States government is actually taking cyber fraud seriously. Which, when I read this story, I actually agreed with it. I only read really the highlights of it. I didn't go too into it, but $875,000 was the agreement to pay to resolve a civil cyber fraud litigation. And this is coming from the Department of Justice. This happened just on September 30th. Georgia Tech Research Corporation has agreed to pay the United States $875,000 to resolve allegations that it violated the False Claims Act and federal common law by failing to meet cybersecurity requirements in connection with certain Air Force and Defense Advanced Research Projects Agency DARPA contracts, GTRC contracts with government agencies, including the U.S. Department of Defense, for research performed at its affiliate, the Georgia Institute of Technology, Georgia Tech. I just want to point out something. You know, Trump did that whole, like, rebranding of the Department of War. We're still calling it Defense. Look, as soon as he's gone, we're calling it Defense again. It makes no sense. But anyway, Georgia Institute of Technology. When contractors fail to follow the required cybersecurity standards and in their DoD contracts, they leave sensitive government information vulnerable to malicious actors and cyber threats. Said Assistant Attorney General Brett A. Shumate of the Justice Department's Civil Division. Together with DoD and other agency partners, the Department of Justice will continue to pursue and litigate violations of cybersecurity requirements to hold contractors accountable when they violate their cybersecurity commitments. So, I like that this is happening. Why? The problem is the United States government, for a very, very long time, has had an issue where it was just do your best. Just do your best. And at most you get slaps on the wrist when you fail to comply with, federal requirements. Like, I think there's FedRAMP. I want to say there's like CMMC, I think was another one. I'm not too up on the federal regulations because I don't really deal in, government side of things. But I do like that this is happening more because there are too many companies that are making bank off of subpar services in cybersecurity to the United States government and our military. So, I do like that. What is the best tweaking app for Linux to make it look proper? I'll just give you a Reddit that you should look at. Go away. Hold on. There's a Reddit that you look at. You can. There's no real one tweaking tool to rule them all. Because what desktop environment are you in? Are you in KDE? Are you in GNOME? Are you in LXDE? Are you in XFCE? Are you in Mate? Are you in Cinnamon? That's just to name a few. XFCE, Sway, Cosmic. So if you're talking about GUI customizations, that really depends on what GUI you're looking at. But there is a well-known Reddit by people who like to rice out their desktops. See what it's talking about? The Hasan Piker thing? I'll pull that up in a second. But it's called Unix P-word. I'm not getting canceled or kicked off for this. But this is where a lot of people share their desktops and setups inside of Linux, and you can get ideas for customizing it any single way you want. Apple launches M5 chip, and suddenly the world doesn't care. But yeah, you can do whatever you want, many different ways. That's the beauty of Linux, is you can customize it any way you want. I'm kind of basic. I just use the Pop! OS out the box, get the little island there, put it in dark mode, put a desktop, background on, call it a day. Mind grub. But yeah, you can find a lot of options here. You can make it look like retro Mac OS 9.1. You'll find a lot of waifu stuff around here. You can get like a retro vibe there. You can get icons. And the cool things about these is if you open up the comments, yep, they'll usually have the layout of everything they did. So, yeah, go there. Go there, get your ideas, tweak and tinker away, and we will know you don't touch grass by how riced out your desktop is. But yeah, you can scroll through here, get a ton of different ideas, and a lot of these are really interesting. Will I spend the dime to do it? Probably not. But, oh yeah, forgot. Apparently this is on live stream fails. Turn off my background music for a second.
This clip, look at that clip, look at this clip. Like, it's obvious he's moving his arms around. Like, he's fucking constantly in a state of zapping. And they've moved away from the initial conversation, which was that, like, she didn't even have that collar on to begin with. And the only reason why I showed the collar was because people were clipping other instances.
Mm-hmm. And?
First of all, are any of the collars illegal? No. Even in the maximalist position, even if what like the people that are claiming are just like a significant threat or whatever, like I've said this already, e-collars that have shocking components that feel like a TENS machine, which I've used on myself in the past because, you know, I'm around dogs that have been trained with that and use it, is not only is it not illegal, but it's also straight up used in the e-fencing for people, and it's used in the training of like dogs in general.
My guy, you don't put the shock on to the point even on e-fencing, which is the only time I've thought about getting it for my dogs, but then I was like, you know what? I'm just going to put a fence up and fix the fence. And you're supposed to put it on the minimal setting. You're not supposed to have it, like, actually hurt the dog that they yelp. And I don't agree with shock collars. And that's why I actually turned away from it. I'm like, do I really want to do this? And I'm like, no. I'm like, I sat there and I thought to myself, and I'm like, if I put a collar on myself, and that was my punishment every time, that would be a little bit absurd. Yeah. I don't get what he's going at with that. Yeah. So, what's this that HBX posted? He posted this a little bit after I started the stream. Real name policies, the war against pseudonymity. Real name policies have existed for well over a decade already, and the problems they cause aren't new, but these problems have become exponentially harmful in today's world, where real name policies are coupled with monopolistic platforms, increased mass surveillance, AI technologies, and facial recognition capabilities. Okay, so basically... Yep. I'm just skimming through this and doing a little quick speed read of this. This is basically talking about what I've talked about as well. You know, where it's dangerous, who's impacted most by real name policies. Like, when people are like, we should have a real ID, we should have requirements that, you know, you have to, you know, use your real name and no anonymity on the internet. There are good reasons for anonymity. Like, let's put it this way. We all know about Alcoholics Anonymous and stuff like that, right? Well, part of it around there is, for the most part, anonymity. Because they have bad backgrounds and stuff like that, and oftentimes people won't even use their real name at first, or whatever. But you also have, this is a big thing I've called out, victims of DV. Because the problem is, there are many people that are trying to figure out how to escape DV situations, and they need to do so under protection of anonymity. Because you think that they want to go onto forums or posting on social media sites or stuff like that about how they're looking for resources to get help and things like that, and then somebody could actually look up their information with their real name, and suddenly, you know, that abusive partner finds out that they're trying to plan to leave. But there's ways around that now. DoorDash verifies at the door for all alcohol. Alcohol is a totally different thing. They're not checking for your name. They're checking for your date of birth just to make sure, oh, you're over 21, cool. Like, I've literally opened the door sometimes when I got alcohol deliveries, and they're like, you're old enough. Here you go. Like, straight up, go to the grocery store. Go get alcohol. Go to a restaurant. When you're older, a lot of times you may not get carded. You may get carded, and then I get the joke about, man, I feel young again. People are carding me. But yeah, that's a problem. Victims of stalking, same situation. Activists and political dissidents. Oh, that is a huge thing. Whistleblowers, for example. They need protection against things. Or you have people that are, you know, speaking out against, you know, like a Honduran blogger using the pseudonym La Gringa, used her blog and Facebook page to criticize the Central American government for years. Women in general. Indigenous people. People with non-Anglophone names. Yeah. In another case, a woman from Japan named Hiroko Yoda wasn't able to sign up for a Facebook account due to her surname. Oh. Yeah, I've actually found this issue. So I actually had I met a person once, and we actually had an issue putting his name into the system. His name was Jay, but not Jay or anything like that. It was literally the letter J. And do you know how many jobs he literally, when I was talking to him, I'm like, your name's like literally J. He's like, yeah. Do you know how hard it is for that guy apparently to apply to jobs? Because a lot of them have a minimum number of characters that you have to put in your name field. Transgender community, yep, that's a big part of it. LGBTQ plus people. Stage performance in small businesses. Yeah, that totally. Yeah, everyone, there is no reason to require all parts of the internet to not be anonymous. And the UK Online Safety Act is going to really hurt the UK. It already is, in many ways. A lot of companies just do not want to do business with the UK. That's just how it is right now. And it's unfortunate. But that's the way it is right now. But yeah. He's just floating under the system, basically. Yeah, pretty much. Pretty much, he's just floating under the system. But, yeah. Oh yeah, and I was in the middle of recording my DEF CON video. To go on a different tangent, I brought some of my challenge coins I got from DEF CON. This was from Run Zero. It's a Caesar Cipher. And this is from DEF CON local groups 4131 Switzerland. They gave me their challenge coin. But yeah, so far, Run Zero has definitely one of the coolest challenge coins that I ever got. I want to take this out of the little case that I put it in. Because this is a Caesar Cipher. It's essentially a fidget spinner. But what exactly is a Caesar Cipher? This is one of the oldest methods of encryption. It's not a very strong one, but it's fun to play with. Where's the right remote? So this is a Caesar Cipher. I think you can see it on camera. Alright, so as you can see, there's two sets of A through Z, as well as, I think there are, is there numbers on here? No, there's not. But, if you look in the middle, there's a number that as you rotate over, which tells you how many numbers that you have to shift it. So let's say, you know, somebody gives you a cipher, and the Caesar cipher requires 7, well then I would take my coin over here. Let me get the window. Hold on. I am looking at the screen trying to get this matched up. Is it? Where are you? Oh, you're right there. Okay, so you have the window over there. So let's say we want to get 7. I think that's 7 right there. Nope, that's 2. Alright, so we have 7. So like A becomes H, Z becomes G, you know, that's a Caesar cipher. And why is it called a Caesar cipher? Well, apparently, this goes back to Julius Caesar, if I recall correctly. So, why did they give us these challenge coins with the Caesar cipher? Well, Run Zero had several challenges with, that you had to use this coin to decipher it, and you win little prizes. They were just like little swag things. But the Caesar cipher coin was what you needed to get the challenge done. So either way, it's really cool. And it's a fun little fidget spinner, I will not lie. Like, that is such a smooth bearing. Look at that. Like, it just keeps going. That law doesn't make sense where you can easily hack and use other people's cameras. What? It is illegal to, you know, access other, well, it is illegal to access people's stuff that has been definitely protected and is, you know, not just open to the internet, which is where Shodan comes into play. Shodan, if I remember, it's been a while since I've done Shodan stuff, but you can find stuff that's exposed. You can find random people's webcams, security cameras, stuff like that. Yeah. In fact, let's see, can I pull that up? Alright. So. Just search for webcams on Shodan, and here are all the things that come up. And let's see. Let's just, let's see what's going on in India. That's just an Apache Tomcat. But you can actually find some real servers in... These are just, like, wide open. And there's things that are parsing all the time. So let's see. Top products you can actually find. Yacam, webcam viewer. Alright, let's see. I'd have to actually log in to my Shodan account, and I really don't feel like doing that right now. But you can see, like, this one has open ports all over the place. Yeah. Sometimes my buddies and I will go through and they'll just share me some of the wildest stuff. We found, like, people having, fun times, or that. A lot of times what we do is, we try, if we can, to notify the people that have access to these things. But these are just open on the internet, period. I'll have to find... let's see. I gotta renew my Shodan account. That's probably part of the problem, too. I'll have to do that another time. I don't feel like doing it right now. I haven't played with this side of things so long. But, yeah. You can find webcams and things like that all open on the internet. Some of my friends really don't have a life, and they send me links to different things where it's like, hey, look what I caught over here. Well, most of the time, the ones they send me are just, like, random ones that are, like, pointing at birds. There's a lot of people that are bird watching and just have cameras pointed on their birds. Apparently, a lot of people do that. But, yeah, it's a thing. It's a thing, indeed. Let's see. Oh yeah, the GitHub comedy is illegal. Okay, so we'll watch a bit of this video over here. This, I already watched this video. That was what Vampire and I were talking at the beginning of the video. It's GitHub, you know, comedy is apparently legal on GitHub. Banned for trolling the Linux kernel GitHub.
I've done at this point 2 videos on the chaos of the Linux kernel GitHub. And shortly after the second video, well, all of the PRs began getting closed. And now the newest one is 3 weeks ago. Did I cause this? I don't know, but the timing is awfully close to...
Just so you know, this was a running meme in the Linux community for a while, because the official kernel dev is not done on GitHub. This is, my understanding, a mirror. Most of the kernel dev is done through kernel.org and stuff like that. But people would use this as a very funny message board
the video
and troll
out.
things.
So, I do feel at least a little bit responsible for the situation that's been making the rounds that we are talking about today. So, prior to the shutdown, there was a PR made. There were many PRs made, but this is one of them that was, and the title is not being shown. Originally, this was the title, Puppy Girl...
I forgot that was the title. And I forgot that they removed the title.
Looking for a DOM GF doesn't seem included in kernel. I'm not sure why the title's been changed, but maybe what we talk about later will explain so. Now, I would not recommend searching that phrase on Twitter because you're gonna get nothing but OF girls, but it did sort of go semi-viral. And let's have a read of the rest of it. Hi, maintainers. I have come across a critical bug in my life. Status single. Expected behavior. DOMGF. Preferably Linux compatible. Who is okay with having
This
a
is
dog.
still funny no matter how many times I've heard of it.
Cats on demand via IOCTL. Boots into cuddles, not a knit. 3, which is like a, cutesy face. Actual behavior. Literally cannot get GF to dom me in a T4R kernel dev way. Tried grepping for mummy in the source, only found deprecation warnings. Set to reproduce, thirst and LKML, wait patiently for GF to appear, mod probe dom GF, and then run dmessage and grep for wagging tail, still waiting, and the rest of this is just all lots of fun. Now...
Okay, I need to pull this up while we're looking at this. I'm gonna go look this up.
As a reminder, yes, obviously this is a really dumb pull request. This is not a real pull request. This is a troll pull request. As a reminder, the Linux kernel GitHub is not used for development. It hasn't been used for development basically ever. There have been some PRs, like 15 years ago, that did make their way partially through here, but this is not how development is being done. And because of that, there has been...
Okay, this is the exact PR. Okay, so as they were talking over there, log dump, pumpy girl module not found, try therapy, gender fluid kernel detected, still lonely. Uwu, syntax error, invalid argument, GF. Expected result once this issue gets resolved. DOM, GF, and latex, preferably open source. If you don't know, latex is actually an application. Receive belly rubs on merge request. T4R will submit bug reports for snacks. Tried rebooting, only got more zoomies. Gen 2 stage 3 also didn't include GF, BTW. Any help from the community would be greatly appreciated. Thank you for attending my TED Talk. If anyone RTMs and still wants to apply, I promise to fetch snacks and debug cuddles. Of course, you have, the typical bot response. This is peak. So you see, overall, people are, a good sport about this. This has been a running joke for a lot of people in the Linux community for a while. We can look through. Silly people, please DM. I wish I had more dev friends, but I'm hella introverted. I love hugs, zig, game hacking, cats, anime, etc. Linux is insecure, it needs to be replaced. Let's see. Let's see if we can find some good ones. Oh god. Make Linux 21, no 41, no 67% faster during tasks when playing Labubu Font. God damn it, Labubu. And this is emoji slop. Download Roblox Studio and open the README in it. But this is essentially what a lot of people do. And as you can see, there isn't a lot of posts in there. Update. Shame on them riggers who tried to run a game on some... What? Oh. I just realized what they... Oh. Yeah, that is, No. Just no. There's trolling, and then there's just being dude, no. You need to go touch grass. Why Proton unable to make API kernel calls for gaming? Because we don't let kernel level access. We don't like it. You don't need it. Anyway, back to the video.
This trend to basically use the LKML GitHub as just a message board, as like a haha fake PR thing, and sometimes people see these and think they're real, and oh my god, how dare you waste the time of kernel maintainers, but kernel maintainers are not checking this, kernel maintainers are not, you know, using this as a
Why did you make using Linux your entire personality? You must be new here! It's not the entire personality, but when you're in cybersecurity, you use Linux a lot.
development platform. In any other context,
and Microsoft is just malware, the way it's acting.
In any other context,
tell me what they're doing with Xbox and Windows 11 is really that great.
Should be banned. This is the one exception where it doesn't hurt anybody. Development is done through the LKML, through the kernel bugzilla, sometimes never here. So why then am I talking about this? Well, you saw the title, you saw the thumbnail, and here is the person over on Twitter. This is Celeste, VM Funk, security researcher, null pointer RS, OXUD2, music producer, and then blog at this right here, and this is their GitHub account. Now, this is not some, LARPing security researcher like some people do. This is an actual security researcher. They have been sourced by VX Underground in the past. This is someone who is actually doing real work. Yes.
Yeah, this whole situation is a bit ridiculous that GitHub suspended them.
They did make haha funny
for a troll post. But I mean, this was a running joke for quite a while in the open source community. Huh. But yeah, so that was the drama that GitHub is in right now over banning a person for troll posts. And you can actually find some troll posts all over GitHub and many different things. And usually they're like kind of funny. Good humor. Making people laugh kind of things. But as we saw, there was one post in there that my brain was not going to the bad place immediately, and I'm like, what do they mean by this? And then my brain clicked, and it's like, oh, no. And I think it's comments like that, which is why they closed a bunch of the PRs, and I believe they locked it. So if I recall, open... It doesn't look like they locked it, but they closed a lot of the things. They may have locked it, because the last thing was like 3 weeks ago. Interesting. But yeah, that's what happened. I was actually interested to see that Linus Torvalds had a GitHub account. Oh, he actually is a pretty frequent, contributor on GitHub. Interesting. What's he committing to? Oh, he's doing like Guitar Pedal and a couple others, and then just bringing over things from the Linux kernel repository. So yeah, this is more or less just a mirror of the entire thing going on. Several guides for kernels, yeah. But the main kernel for Linux, if you're ever curious, is at kernel.org. This is where the main dev work is done. Got it over here. You go to git.kernel.org. Huh, apparently they're 503 right now. They might be doing some maintenance. You can rsync it here, and then you can download the actual kernel straight from here. I've done that multiple times when I used to compile my own kernel. It was a little bit involved to make your own kernel, you probably need to set aside a good at least like hour or so to compile your own kernel. But as you can see, there's multiple kernels even at any given point, because they make long-term branches that are still supported. And as you can see, this stable one, 6.16, is EOL. The current stable is 6.17.3, and 6.18 is on a release candidate. And then you have these long-term kernels. So the long-term kernels are still used by various operating systems, because you have operating systems that have a release cycle of like, many of them do it's 5 years per distribution, unless you get rollings and stuff like that, but essentially you want stability in an enterprise. Like, I know for the new boxes, the brand new boxes I actually deployed, I'm now doing Linux 6.1 over at work. Could I have done, you know, I looked it up and it was like, they had like the regular stable branch. I could have done 6.17 on some of the images, but I was like, let's do the latest long-term release. They also had a 5.10 one. And I'm like, let's go with 6.1 because it's newer. And then, where am I at right now? I know I did a major jump. Oh, I'm on 6.1, 6.3, which is getting to be on an EOL version of Linux, so I'm presuming that Pop! OS is eventually going to release a new kernel. But I've jumped through multiple kernels. I think when I did this at first, it was like, I want to say 5.4, maybe 5.10. It's been a few years. But, yeah. The big release lately, in terms of Linux, was a while ago with 6.14, which a lot of the gamers were celebrating because it actually had a lot of optimizations for gaming performance on Linux. But, yeah. Yeah, it's unfortunate that GitHub is going the way that they are. I mean, YouTube's also going the way that they are because YouTube has just have other problems and very many problems actually for a while. But like I heard like people were talking about there's too many member-only videos lately. There's got my Jellyfin server working with Tailscale. Thank you for the advice to use it. My pleasure. I'm glad you got it to work. I personally haven't used Tailscale, but I know a lot of my community is raving about it. I like TwinGate a little bit more for my needs. Not hating on Tailscale at all. Look, there's so many different tools that do exactly what people need for their job, and that's fine. But TwinGate is what I learned with because it's a little bit closer to the Zero Trust network access model that a lot of businesses are looking at with SASE, which is, what does that stand for? Security something soft, oh, no, Secure Access Service Edge. Yeah. Basically, the idea is that you have a cloud-based framework that integrates networking capabilities like SD-WAN with security functions like SWG, CASB, and ZTNA. So it's a combination. I would like to get more SASE deployed in my home lab to match my SASE self. I've also been a little bit out of it today, because I've been sick for a couple of days. Not 100%, you know, like, basically my asthma was going off the chain. I did have to get some steroids prescribed by the doctor. It's mostly just lungs and crap. Having asthma's fun. It's also why if anyone ever meets me IRL and you have just smoked a cigarette, if I happen to be standing far away from you or like stand back, it's not trying to be offensive. It's like third-hand smoke is an actual problem. Like just smelling cigarettes off of people can set me off. But if you smoke like a cigar or a tobacco pipe, it doesn't bother me. It's just cigarettes. But yeah, I'm going to be working on a couple of videos in the near future about how Windows 10 is dead. Maybe you should consider Linux. I'm also going to be talking about gaming on Linux, and just some of the tips that can help out and hopefully give some understanding for some of the ways of Linux and all that. I'm trying to get back into the flow and headspace of making more content. I do have to make a video about DEF CON. I still have that planned. I have the script written for it. I just got to sit down, record it, and then edit the video. I hope to have that out next week. And then I do want to get my video about GurCon out. Hopefully get that out again next week. So there's things to come. But, yeah, it's been fun. And then I've been getting more and more into ham radio, so there will actually be videos on ham radio and my setup and my shack and everything once I get the Linux PC set up there to work with the ham radio the way I want it. I'm still tinkering with so many different softwares. I want to do a video properly discussing like which softwares I liked and didn't like as I went through my adventure. My experience with Andy's Ham Radio Linux. I tried it out for a while. It has a lot of tools. A lot of them I don't need. And I had some issues with it. That's why I'm hoping that my new system, the little Ryzen mini PC over here, may fix them. I think my issues came down to there wasn't enough memory, and the CPU in that machine that I had in there originally is a little bit anemic because I literally built that setup to only have the mini PC, it's a minis form in there, with like, I think an Intel N97 or N100 with 8 gigabytes of RAM. That was literally just to be a recording booth PC. Like, just there for recording audio, and then taking it and then mixing it into songs with friends, or content that I was recording videos for at the time before I had this setup. But yeah. Couldn't upgrade to Windows 11, so I'm using Windows 10 IoT Enterprise LTSC. I forget what version of Enterprise I'm on. I think I'm just on plain old Enterprise. Because I did upgrade to Windows 11. So there is one thing I actually liked about Windows 11, but it's one of those things that, like, Windows 11 is really just Windows 10 with a skin and extra spyware and malware. Like, you would be surprised if I pulled up my firewall logs, how much I am blocking Windows telemetry. Like, it is seriously amazing just how much Microsoft is calling back home from their Windows box compared to the rest of my network. Like, I have a lot of different devices. I've got, like, probably, I would say, between phones, laptops, and just IoT devices in general, I'd have to say there's probably 2 or 3 dozen. I'd have to say Yitz's laptop and my Windows desktop are by far the majority of blocks from telemetry-related stuff that I'm blocking on the network. You're learning Linux on an old laptop in your home server? Nice! That's the great thing about Linux, is that you can breathe new life into old machines. A lot of people that get new devices often are just like, wow, my computer's just so old, I need to get a new computer. It's often not the computer that's gotten old, is getting slower. It's Windows that's bogged down the system so much that it feels slower. To the point, like, I don't really feel the need to upgrade a lot of my systems unless there's an actual hardware limitation with my workflows. Like, Ryzen 5950X, 2 terabyte NVMe, and a 1 terabyte NVMe, and a couple AS8 SSDs, but an NVIDIA 3070. The only thing I really feel like I want to upgrade in this, that GPU. But I'm also have to get the power supply for that and all that. But overall, this system still feels snappy. In fact, I feel like in some ways it's faster now than when I got it. Whereas this Windows box, in some ways it feels like it's slowed down. Even though it's a 5700X, 64 gigs of RAM, an NVIDIA 3050, and I think a 1 or a 2 terabyte NVMe SSD. Now, I barely do anything on this machine except run OBS, the occasional Windows software that has to run on there, like when I do a lot of my meeting calls and all that, then I end up using the Windows PC. But yeah. But Windows 11, there's nothing really new fundamentally to it that couldn't have been patched into Windows 10. And the only thing that I really liked about Windows 11 was the file manager has tabs on it. And why? Because I have been so used to tabs being on my file browsers inside of Linux for 15 years. No joke. We've been able to put tabs in File Explorer since like Windows XP Vista days. And Windows just added that to their File Explorer. My main PC needs upgraded, but it's still perfectly usable for me. It's an i7 6700, RX 6600, and 64 gigabytes RAM. Yeah, that's a perfectly fine machine. There's nothing wrong with that. There's nothing wrong with the specs you just listed. Like, seriously, put Pop! OS or whatever Linux you want on it. You can get a few more years out of it. Are the specs by any means like the highest end right now? Hell no. But you can still use that as a very viable system. It's not like you're saying, oh yeah, my system, you know, it's a Pentium 4 or even a Core 2 Duo with only like 4 gigabytes of RAM. But even then, you could throw Linux on those boxes and breathe some life into it as a home server. That's the only thing good about Windows 11, in my opinion. Well, that and Windows Subsystem for Linux does tie in better to Windows 11 than Windows 10 does. But that's a very niche thing for a lot of people, and that only really affects me at work because I primarily do all of my dev work in Linux. And the funny thing is, I get weird looks from the devs often because they'll do their git pulls and pushes and all that completely inside of VS Code. I still use Linux and put my SSH key in there for me to do my git pulls and pushes, and script all of my stuff to run inside of a Linux environment for like bash scripting and everything like that. So like I'll like package up little Python packages that I need to do, and then make a shell script to make it all pretty. Of course, that was before we space lifted everything, and now I actually terraform it up and tell it to grab all the dependencies to push into a Lambda with Spacelift in the CI/CD pipeline, so Spacelift just takes care of that dev work for me. But yeah, that shows this one because it gives support until 2032. I think you'll probably end up replacing that actual computer before 2032. So I think you're good there, buddy. But yeah, this little mini PC looks good. I haven't turned it on yet. I should. But I picked it up off of Amazon. It's a nice little guy. In fact, I would reckon you could probably use this as a nice little good pfSense firewall. Be overkill for it, because look at, like, it's got dual NICs, but it's a Ryzen 7 5700U, which is a really great CPU. Do not get me wrong. I use it on one of my laptops, but it's really overpowered. Hello, sir, Windows 11. What are your thoughts on the local account? Is there some kind of workaround? Well, the workaround, if you want a local account, is you can always install Linux. But seriously, enterprise versions and pro versions of Windows allow you to install it easily. I have never personally on my machines ever used a home edition of Windows. I have always gone for the Pro, or ever since 7, Enterprise, because I have a key for it. So I actually have a local account on my Windows 11 box, And how I managed to do that was, I told it I'm going to be connecting it to Active Directory, and I didn't have to make a Windows local account. And then I tied it into my management system. I'm not using Intune, and that does the policies and stuff for my Windows machines in the box, and eventually I will get the LDAP side of things set up. I just haven't had the time to really sit down and get into it for that. I know how to do LDAP and everything. But yeah, for the local account thing, Pro and Enterprise versions of Windows, tell it you're going to set up an Active Directory account. Do it without internet connectivity. Should still work. That OOBE command, I know they've pretty much neutered, but the reality is, if you're that concerned with having control over your own machine, there's really one operating system choice. That's Linux. Microsoft is going to dick you around longer and longer. And not in the good way. Because they've just been getting worse and worse, and their entire point they're trying to do is to collect as much data on you to profit off of you. And it cracks me up when people try to crack their Windows computer just to get rid of the watermark, and then actually think they're getting one over on Microsoft. Like, dude, you're still installing Windows and giving them your data, and they're making money off of your data. They don't give a crap that you're not giving them a few bucks. So you just cracked it with software that possibly actually had malware in there and you infected your computer. Congratulations, you just played yourself. The only reason I don't give Microsoft any more money is I have a Windows 7 Enterprise key that still works with 8, 10, and now 11. Grandfather, baby! Chief is falling behind on review on stream. I got through almost everything. I just don't want to use everything. DIY at walkie-talkies. ESP32 walkie-talkies. How long is this video? Okay, so we can take a look at this video before I call it a night, because I do want to get to bed early because I have not been feeling well, and I basically had to give myself a bunch of caffeine just to be able to be on the stream.
These are homemade walkie-talkies that I've made myself. They work with a direct Wi-Fi connection using an ESP32 and ESP Now protocol.
Okay.
I'm sharing the files for the PCB, the code, the part list, and the 3D designs for free, as always in the description, in case that you also want to try such a project. So guys, why do I need homemade walkie-talkies? It has something to do with this device here. But more about that in a moment, because first we have to try them.
Yeah, I want to find... So, pausing for a second. I want to find out his use case for why he's doing it over Wi-Fi, because Wi-Fi is not a really good protocol to actually, well, I have to find out if he's actually doing Wi-Fi or what he's doing, or is he just using the 2.4 gigahertz spec, whatever he's doing there. Because Wi-Fi is not 2.4 gigahertz, 5 gigahertz, 6 gigahertz is not really a good spectrum to be doing voice comms on, especially over range. I mean, we all know the limitations of Wi-Fi ranges. Sorry, brain fart. Because, like, Wi-Fi ranges you can probably do, like, maybe around a household. So, like, you have, like, maybe 1,000 square feet, 1,200 square feet. Makes sense, okay? It's a relatively limited range. Whereas my GMRS radio, which is using the same frequencies and channels as FRS, and FRS is, if any of you have actually gone to the store and just bought a walkie-talkie off the shelf, that's an FRS radio. Those are 2.5 watts. GMRS is it uses the same exact frequencies. You can use them interchangeably with FRS, but you have more, capabilities on GMRS, like setting the CTCSS, the subaudible tone code, which is nice because then you can actually have it open and close to only a certain tone that's subaudible. But like GMRS, the great thing about it versus Wi-Fi is, like, when I was at DEF CON, there were some cell dead spots in Vegas, I found. And I've always been dealing with it. But I could always be in comms with one of my buddies that actually also had his GMRS radio, and we, linked up and said we're going to be on this channel. And I was able to hit him 4 miles away. So that's why I'm like curious why he picked this particular approach, but let's find out.
I'll place the microphone on the table together with the other walkie-talkie. Get this one.
Testing, 1, 2, 3. So as you can see, I'm using my homemade ESP. Yes, I've just released the button. Anyway, I'm using my homemade ESP32 walkie-talkie with
That
ESP
audio is not that great.
as communication with the microphone and with the speaker and a bunch of other stuff. A 3D printed case. So yeah.
This should be a very fun project. So
But it could also be the placement of his mic.
What's up, my friends? Welcome back. I wanted to make a programmed walkie-talkie for a long time, and I finally made it. And if you also want to replicate this project, download my Gerber files from below for free, as always. Then you can go to PCBWay.com and click the Code Now button. And here you can add the size of the PCB and also
I do like PCBWay. They made the
In my case, I've selected the
top
black
for
one
my
because I
mini
like it.
laptop. I gotta make a video
Save to cut, and
talking
on the
about
next
their
page, upload
stuff.
the Gerber files you have downloaded.
Yeah, I
and
would
make the
replace with
order.
Laura Halo.
For only $5, you can get 10 PCBs.
Yeah, I mean,
for
Halo could
prototypes
work.
And cool projects. And in a few days,
It's on the
I received my
ISM
PCBs,
band.
and I was ready for my walkie-talkie. I want to make a programmable walkie-talkie, so before we assemble it, some story time. So why is that important? And what do I mean by programmable? Well, it has something to do with this. Because you see, when I moved to my new house, I had no doorbell at my front gate, and I received a lot of packages for my workshop. And the distance between the gate and my house is quite large, and I didn't want a huge cable through all my yard, so I needed a wireless doorbell. But you see, I don't want just a doorbell.
You don't have to run a cable across your yard. You can bury it directly. Cat 6A outdoor. But I know that's not for everybody.
Doorbell that would ring. I also want an intercom so I could talk to the delivery guy, for example. And that would be a programmed walkie-talkie. Different from a normal radio walkie-talkie, this could make a call whenever the button is pressed, it could accept or reject it, it could have
Okay, so
Wi-Fi
he did at
password,
least talk
broadcast or
about-
single channel, and you could just talk like a normal.
It's not really a walkie-talkie. It's more of a HT, a handheld transceiver. Walkie-talkie I kind of consider as those FRS devices. I know I'm pausing a lot, okay? But that's a very, very basic Baofeng. Baofeng is like where everyone starts. There's better radios out there, I will be completely honest. And even on the cheap end, I like TID radio a lot more. I've loved my H8. That's my everyday carry. And that antenna he's got on there, not the best.
normal walkie-talkie. And
But
that's why I called it
it's a doable
programmable.
thing.
It must have a microcontroller inside to take decisions. And this one cost me like $40, which got me thinking.
So as always, I thought it should be nice to make my own. And that's what I did.
Once you combine radio audio with a microcontroller, you could program it however you want.
Right.
My PCB has a very small vibrating motor and an RGB LED for notifications. It could have a single channel or broadcast mode. It also has an OLED display to show any value that
Everyday
you want.
carry for what?
And using an ESP32, you can always
Ham
go further and
comms.
involve IoT or any other internet-related.
I have another radio for my car, and my ham shack is behind me.
Internet. Could be fun.
So let's get started, so check the schematic of my project and the part list below. I need the ESP32, a microphone to get the sound for the transmitter, and an amplified DAC to create the sound at the speaker of the receiver. Obviously, I first tried to use the ESP32 ADC and the normal analog microphone module, but the quality was so bad that I had to change my approach.
Okay.
Then I found this I2S microphone module, which seems to work great. I2S is like I2C but for
A
sound.
small little microphone.
This is the IN-MP441
What are you doing daily to need
and we only need
walkie-talkies?
to connect it to the I2S port using
So why do I use walkie-talkies daily? I'm a ham radio operator. I have an amateur radio license. I'm general class currently. I'm going to go for amateur extra. I like to talk to other people on the radio, but let's say there's a situation where cell and or internet is down. And it has happened. Don't ever think that, like, oh, no, that's going to ever happen. We saw how Portugal and parts of Spain went out of power for several days. But you know who was still in comms? Ham radio operators, Mesh-tastic operators. So I carry a Mesh-tastic device with me usually every day, but I do have my ham radio almost always with me. And it's been useful. Like, I have friends when I've gone to conventions and we do it on GMRS and pick a channel and then open a CTC SS code to open and close. So that way we don't get too much noise from, everything going on. But yeah, I'm a ham radio operator. I also like to hit the repeaters wherever I go. So if I travel to different cities, I like to see who's there. But wasn't that a handheld? Isn't that different? What I use? It's a transceiver. What he showed before was a Baofeng transceiver. People call it a walkie-talkie, but you need to have a license for it. Different from ham radio. Well, you can use a Baofeng or any ham. So it's not illegal to have a ham radio to listen. You have to have a license to transmit. But you don't need a license to operate on FRS. You do need a license, a separate one, GMRS, which is like $35 for 10 years, same as the ham license, but ham license requires a test, and a GMRS can cover an entire household. But FRS is 2.5 watts, GMRS is about 5 watts, and you can also do repeaters with GMRS up to 50 watts. Why do you need a license? So that we can actually, it's basically just knowing that you know how to operate your responsibly in the radio waves, because it's very easy to cause interference, and we want to make sure that you're doing radio properly. And if you're not doing it properly, believe me, there are volunteer monitors out there that will actually triangulate your position and then send that information over to the FCC. And the FCC does not mess around with fines and penalties. FRS? Yeah, Family Radio Service. You have Family Radio Service, FRS, and then you have GMRS, General Mobile Radio Service. So, it's pretty nice. Then you also have CB, which doesn't require a license, but is much lower power, and that's around 27 megahertz. But my handheld operates in the 2 meter and 70 centimeter spectrum, which is 144 and 440 megahertz, around that range. And then my ham shack behind me, which I have a few TikTok videos, I don't have a YouTube video on, that can do up to 100 watts right now, but my license allows me up to 1,500 watts in certain cases, in many cases. I just have to have amplifiers and everything like that. But yeah, every country does require a license, and I can, that radio that I currently have set up, I've reached people as far as Canada, and also the Eastern Seaboard, and I've been able to contact people a few states over. But also in terms of emergency comms, there's net talks where you can actually talk with different people, but also you pass messages to each other. So for example, an example is like during hurricanes or tornadoes, comms are often down, cellular, internet. So radio operators volunteer to relay messages to each other. So it'll be like, hey, I'm looking for my mom. She's at so-and-so address. Can somebody hit her up? And they'll relay the message to the team, and then they'll get it back, and then it gets transmitted through different net talks so that they can actually get that. It's called, and there's radiograms as well. And it's really useful, especially in times of emergency. And not only that, if you're getting into networking and you want to learn about how to best do Wi-Fi professionally, ham radio licensing is definitely going to help you understand the art and science of radio as you study for the test. Could you elaborate a little on FRS? What is it used for? FRS is just every walkie-talkie. So if you've gone to the store and you've bought a walkie-talkie for your kids, that's an FRS radio. That's it's simple as it gets. You get 22 channels that you can access. I forget what exactly which frequencies they're at, but I think they're close to the 144 megahertz range. Here, I'm gonna check GMRS frequencies. There's 22 channels. No, I was wrong. They're not at 144. They're between 462 and 467 megahertz. And GMRS and FRS operate in the same ranges. So you can use an FRS and a GMRS to actually talk to each other. But GMRS also gives the ability to have much greater power. So versus it's 5 watts versus 2 or 2.5. But with GMRS, you also have a few channels you can access that do repeaters, and you can have up to a 50 watt repeater. So you can, greatly have comms around, have a great area to comm with people, and you can set up a GMRS that's repeater that's mobile. I was actually talking to my buddy about possibly doing that. So FRS is within a specific hertz range, like Wi-Fi. All radio technologies are within a certain frequency range because of the licensing that has them. So you have Wi-Fi 2.4, 5, and 6 gigahertz, which has been allotted by the FCC in the United States and relevant agencies around the world to be used for Wi-Fi consumer usage as well as commercial uses. But you also have the ISM bands in the United States, which is 902 to 928 megahertz. We often just refer to it as 915 megahertz, which is the industrial, science, and medical spectrum, which you can use for any reason. Meshtastic and a lot of other things operate that way. The ISM band over in the EU is 868 megahertz. I forget the specific range, but they refer to it as 868. VHF, UHF on ham is usually on the 2 meter and 70 centimeter bands, which are 144 and 440 megahertz. So the GMRS does play into that. So many ham radios can often also double as a GMRS. So my handheld does both. And then, of course, you have HF frequencies, so those can go very low. So my setup can do VHF, UHF, so 144 and 440, so 2 meter and 7 centimeter. But it can also do very low frequencies, so my antenna can do as low as 3.5 megahertz all the way up to 58 or 67 megahertz. So yeah, I can go as low as I think it's the 80 centimeter band, but it doesn't say 80 meter band, but it doesn't do as well. I'm going to get another antenna to do 40, 80, and 160 meter a lot better. I can't even do 160 right now. Only 7 channels. Dang. Channels 1 through 7 use frequencies 462.5625 and 462.7125 megahertz. Yeah. Yeah, because you got to have that channel separation for voice. But yeah.
Using pins 18, 19, and
wondering if FRS includes Wi-Fi. No, FRS does not include Wi-Fi. FRS says FRS.
Code works. I had to make a lot of separate tests. So to test the microphone, make the I2S connection and upload this code and run the serial plotter.
What's up, my friends? Welcome back. As you can see, I get the plot of my voice.
Getting license was messing with the emergency satellite internet.
We can continue.
So the microphone works. The
satellite internet is a whole different license than ham.
The ESP32 also has its own DAC.
You cannot do encrypted comms over
So again, after some
ham.
tests, I've decided to use an I2S DAC, the MAX 98357A. And this will also connect to the pin 18, 19, and pin 5 of the ESP32. By the way, you have all the example codes that you can see in this video below on electrons.com. Now upload this example code and this should play some sound from the memory.
Now the sound is in the memory, I reset the port.
In this house, we obey the laws of thermodynamics.
It vibrates a lot, but now I have I2C and an amplifier connected to the speaker. So it works.
I'd probably get a better...
Okay, so the DAC...
The speaker's a little bit tinny there. I think he has to put a better box around it or something. I don't know.
Amplifier also works, so we can continue.
Which license do you need for emergency satellite? You'd have to find the spectrum that the satellite's on and actually be granted it.
And for that, I want to use for the
You'll
first
have to look
time
up the FCC.
a communication protocol that is called ESP now. This basically creates a device-to-device Wi-Fi
But you
communication.
can comm with
without any router
satellites
or
and the
internet
International
connection.
Space Station with a ham
Basically
license.
like a radio or Bluetooth
You
connection.
can
but
collect the
using
beacon
Wi-Fi.
information and stuff like that.
So we get the data from the microphone, we send it using ESP-NOW to the other microcontroller, and play the data using the DAC. Easy, right? So we are ready, so let's assemble the PCB and make the final code. There is no specific order, but usually I start with the power part and make sure that the power
Am I
works.
multi-streaming? Yes,
So
I
solder
am.
the battery charger first. As always, I'm using a 1S USB charger with a TP4056
I'm on Twitch,
IC.
Kick, YouTube, and
And you can use
TikTok.
the old ones with the USB-B or go with the new ones with the USB Type-C connector. You have some links for that below. I've also soldered a 3.8 volts battery and test if it charges. Now I can continue. And as I've told you before, there's no specific order, so check the full part list below and also the schematic, and follow the schematic
Okay.
for all the components.
Pretty straightforward soldering
I
project.
soldered the DAC, and then I also add an on and off switch. I've also added a power input filter with a coil and a capacitor, because audio is very sensible to noise.
So he's got... Okay. Capacitor. Got a coil in there. Could probably add a different filter in there, but I guess he doesn't need high quality stuff. God damn it. What do you call that? Not a transistor. My brain is so dead right now. I'm trying to remember what that component is called. Crap. You have capacitors. You have inductor. Yeah, I think that's an inductor.
I soldered the OLED display. And by the way, for the vibration notifications, I found this very tiny vibration motor. It already has some glue on the back, so I solder it to the PCB, and it will be controlled with this small BJT transistor. I solder all the push buttons and the microphone module. I've also added a small 8 ohm speaker, so now everything is ready. And have in mind this is a prototype PCB, so it doesn't look that good. But now if I know that it works, I can make a better and smaller one in the future.
Okay.
At this point, I've already made some tests and have a first draft of the final code, which I've uploaded to the board. On the side breadboard, I've connected the microphone to the ESP32 and a push button, just to make a test, and here it is.
1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. What's up, my friends? Welcome back. So, it works quite awesome. Yeah. Actually, the quality is quite good. Now, the speaker is very bad, but the quality is good, and imagine with a better speaker.
So
Yeah,
it works
that's
quite
what I've been
well,
saying.
and the sound is a lot better than I've expected. Actually, the quality is very much affected by the speaker. For example, with this bigger speaker, the quality is a lot better, but this speaker is quite big, and that's why I'll go with some low quality speakers for now, and I've already ordered some better ones for the future. So if you get a bad quality sound, it's more a problem with the speakers and not the DAC.
Yeah.
Okay, it's time to assemble the second PCB.
DACs are
because
pretty
walkie-talkies
straightforward these
need at
days.
least 2 devices. I soldered the second one in the same way.
Hold up. Why that way? That's just such a weird way to do it. I would do it standing up on a through hole, but he didn't give enough spacing, I guess. That could be why.
I soldered the second one in the same way. And now
On
I have
today's
two
episode of
PCBs.
I Messed Up
I've
Big
also
Time, I
designed the
learned
case
why you
and
make
3D printed
backups
it.
of your home server.
And the case
Yep,
is very
that'll
simple,
happen.
just for the prototype. It has spaces for the USB inputs, the switch, the OLED display, and the push buttons. And the 3D design
Pretty
already has some
straightforward.
flexible buttons that will touch the buttons on the PCB. It has this nice finish because I've used my hologram printed bed of my 3D printer. And they look quite okay. So now that we have the PCBs and the
Looks like
case,
PLA.
get the USB cable
I could
and
be
upload the
wrong,
final
but I'd
code.
rather go with
Which, by the
PETG.
way,
It
let's
just
check it
takes a
out
little bit
real
more
quick.
flex and it's stronger.
We include all the libraries,
And a bit
which
more
if you don't
thermal,
have, check the links for the download.
It stands
We
the heat
define
a
the
little
OLED
bit more
display
for the sun.
settings. We define all the inputs and outputs to be the same as on the schematic. Now here, if this variable is set to true, the broadcast mode is activated, meaning the ESP-NOW protocol uses the default broadcast MAC, which is this one, an array of 6 double Fs in hexadecimal, and using this, all the ESPs that are around will receive the audio at the same time. You can also use a specific channel for private communication, and to get the MAC of your ESP32 device, use the Wi-Fi.MAC address function. Actually, I've already made a code to print on the OLED display the MAC address, so you could just copy that.
Okay.
The entire code has comments, so read them for more details. But we make a function to configure the I2S for the microphone, then yet another function for the I2S of the DAC, and this function here will set the receiver MAC. Now this function runs each time we receive new data using ESP Now, and gets the received bytes.
Everyone has their mistake from forgetting to do backups and losing everything.
And then in the void loop, each time the push button is pressed,
it's a mistake you make only once.
The microphone. And using I2S, we get the sound from the module and send it using ESP Now using this line here. And that's it for the first draft of the prototype code.
Okay.
Obviously, now that I know that it works, I can work on making a menu on the OLED display, maybe making some automatic pairing, different channel selector, making vibration and LED notifications, and maybe also adding encryption, but that is for a future update. I upload the same code to both PCBs. Using screws, I place them inside of the 3D printed case. They each have a battery, so we don't need a USB for power.
I'd probably use some,
I've added the
heat set inserts if you're screwing in.
Just for the aesthetics because it's not connected to anything. But to improve the range, I might buy some ESP32 boards with an external antenna, such as these modules here.
Yep.
Because in
you
that
want
way,
an external antenna
outside of the case. Okay,
did the same thing with my Meshtastic.
For this test, I'm gonna place the microphone right here on the table. Take my walkie-talkie.
1, 2, 3, testing, 1, 2, 3. And just go a little bit further, just to test the range. As you can see, now I'm blocked by a wall, and I can still hear it. And now I'm exiting the door.
Oh.
Not sure if I can lose the signal because I can't hear it.
He's already breaking up.
Yeah, I can hear it.
That's not far.
Actually, we should go to the street to test this.
Okay, I'm gonna place the microphone right here and go far away.
It's going to be a lot better outside because they'll have line of sight.
Testing, 1, 2, 3. Okay. The range is like 10 meters. Testing, 1, 2, 3. Testing. I'm not sure. I can't hear it anymore, so I'm not sure if it works or not. This is the maximum I can get. Maybe I should go into the field later. Yep. Testing, 1, 2, 3. I have to rewatch the video to see if I can get the signal because I can't hear it from here.
Now I have to say that the range is not that great, but there's an explanation for that, and I'm not worried at all because
it's the antenna and the power, but mostly the antenna. Because here's the rule of thumb whenever it comes to radio stuff. It's better to have a good antenna and a bad radio than a good radio and a bad antenna.
At close range, the audio quality is very good, it works great, and I can always improve that with better antennas. And not just that, but I realized that the first time I've used the walkie-talkies, I was able to get more or less the same range, but also from inside my house, and it should pass like 3 walls.
This is why when I actually get antennas nowadays, I use this little tool over here. I started doing that since I've become a ham radio operator. I can detect the standing wave ratio of an antenna and see how tuned it is to any particular frequency. I need to bring an antenna around here one of these days so I can show you this, but I will definitely have it in a video because as you can see, I've got these SMA to SO239 connectors that I use for it, where, you know, I can plug this in and then plug that into my ham antennas line, and I can do an SWR check. With SWR, by the way, you want it to get to as close to 1 as possible. Now, the interesting thing with antennas, just so you know, a lot of people have the misconception that you want to get a extremely high gain antenna. In many cases, you do, because you can receive a signal much better. But often, with a high gain antenna, the beam actually vertically gets more narrow. So a low gain antenna can at least propagate vertically a little bit more, but a high gain antenna can propagate out farther, but it won't be able to angle as well on the vertical side of things. Just stuff to know. This is stuff you learn as you deal with the art and science of radio.
And I realized
What's up, Charlie?
the more I use it, the battery goes lower and lower. And not just that, but the higher is the sound, those peaks in the speaker are drawing a lot of current, and that interferes a lot with the signal of the ESP32. Have in mind that the batteries are like 4 volts, and if the voltage gets below 3.3 volts, the regulator of the ESP32 doesn't work that good. So I have a battery problem. So for the next version, I want to use a 2S batteries and a voltage regulator for 5 volts. And that for sure will get better results. So for the future update, I will go with an 8 volts battery, voltage regulator with a constant current output and a very good filter. And also the PCB will have a connector for an external antenna, and for sure that will improve the reach. Because I've seen that the more you use the speaker, it draws a lot of current, and even at a close range,
is that enough amperage hours to power electronics?
So it is a power problem, not just.
Well, he's just doing a tiny little ESP32 board.
These buttons to talk is quite uncomfortable. First of all, you are covering the microphone, which is here, and also is very difficult to reach, and with the other hand as well.
That explains the quality a little bit more.
Another walkie-talkie. Now that I have the prototype PCB, I'll make a smaller one, and with a separate PCB for the button that will be here on the side. And yeah, change the antenna to an external one, because this is just for looks. It is not connected to the PCB, but that with the 8 volts battery and a lot of other improvements for filtering and so on, I think I will improve the range a lot. So stay tuned for that. By the way, I will also want to try the other thing.
The other thing I would like to see him test out on this is spurious emissions. How because you have to be careful when you're dealing with transmission about spurious emissions. Now, when you buy your devices off the shelf, you don't have to worry about that. It's been cleared by CE, FCC, all of that to get licensed and approved to be able to transmit. But when you're making your own radios, you need to be mindful of spurious emissions. What are spurious emissions? Essentially, you're broadcasting on more frequencies than you're actually intending. So when you're transmitting, for example, at like 2.4 gigahertz, you're not transmitting only at 2.4 gigahertz. There's a window. Like, oftentimes, there's a separation of like 500 to 600 kilohertz with voice bands. So you may be using up that space. Now, with data, you're of course going to be using a wider spectrum, a bit of the spectrum, because you can send more data if your channel's wider. That's why if you ever wonder like 20 versus 40 megahertz and how they have those things inside of Wi-Fi, those things play. But also why if you're in a congested area, it's not a good idea to use a wide channel, because you are more likely to get interference. Now again, spurious emissions, because he's creating his own device, I'm curious how much in spec that is actually producing. Like, if you bleed out beyond that, you can cause interference for other devices, and if it falls out of the range you're actually allowed to, not like this is very low power, so this probably won't happen to him, but the FCC can come knocking.
Using an NRF24 radio module, because the range of this one is a lot higher. You can get up to kilometers. But I will have to see how to make the packets of the packages of the sound, because with Wi-Fi you have a lot more bandwidth, but with this I will have to see how to send the...
That's a LoRa chip.
But anyway, stay tuned for that as well.
So guys, now that I have the...
So that thing he's talking about, that NRF board, NRF is, I forget the specific numbers we use, is the same board a lot of us use in Meshtastic. It's usually on the ISM band. That's the 915 megahertz band in the US, 868 in the EU. It's free to use. It's called the industrial science and medical spectrum. That's actually where a lot of components you'll buy actually are in that spectrum for those spaces. And you're able to use it as much as you like too. I lost my place. There we go.
Because the range of this one is a lot higher, you can get up to kilometers. But I will have to see how to make the packets of the packages of the sound, because with Wi-Fi you have a lot more bandwidth, but with this I will have to see how to send the voice. But anyway, stay tuned for that as well.
So guys, now that I have the walkie-talkies,
Some guy made his own
I can
radio.
start working on the program doorbell intercom and maybe save you some money. I'll make another update once I have something new related with this project, but till then, check the website page for the PCB, the code, the part list, and the 3D printed case for free as always, and maybe support me on Patreon for my work. I hope that you have learned something new, and if so, give me a like or comment below.
Thanks again, and see you later, guys.
So again, it's a fun little project. Do not get me wrong. I mean, I'll definitely check out his channel some more. First time I've seen his video. But, being a guy that's into amateur radio, like I was going through the video, I, spotted some inefficiencies. Now, he did mention, the electrical side of it, with having a better regulator and all of that, and it comes into play. But the antenna is the biggest factor there in terms of improving the range. But Wi-Fi, you can only get so far of a range, so... I'm curious. What's the average power output of a Wi-Fi router? Okay, so Wi-Fi routers are generally 5 to 20 watts. Not how they use. From the antenna. How much RF power? Okay, so Wi-Fi actually is not that powerful. So at most it's 2 watts EIRP. That is the maximum limit set by the FCC. If you're curious what that is, that's equivalent incident radio power. Oh, that's a good analogy that someone actually put up. I'm just reading, what somebody else was writing. It's like the equivalent of rear wheel horsepower, the amount of power that actually reaches the ground. So with only 2 watts as a max, which I doubt he's getting anywhere near with the little walkie-talkies he's doing, he's not going to go far. So your average, Wi-Fi router is probably somewhere between like 0.5 to 1 watts. So to give you an idea of just how much better a FRS radio is, just those standard off-the-shelf walkie-talkies, those are about 2 watts. At least max. The GMRS radio I said, it's about 5 watts. My handheld ham radio does about 8 watts. My car ham radio does 25 watts. I'll eventually be getting a 50-watt one. And my ham shack over here does up to 100 watts. And I'm licensed to do up to 1500 watts in most spectrums. So there's a lot that goes into the art and science of radio. And the reason why I call it the art and science of radio, because yes, there is a science component to radio, but it's just as much an art as anything. And trust me, if you're getting into networking, especially in your career, study ham radio. Oh my god, I wish I studied it so many years ago. It demystified so much about Wi-Fi networking and optimizations that you would not believe, because a lot of people that are doing networking in the IT space, they're doing it with a lot of guesswork. They are paying tons of money for different tools, when really a lot of it could be mapped out with, you know, your brain by just a little bit of common sense and a little trial and error and understanding the positioning of antennas. Like, a lot of people don't understand, and I've had to tell people this for years, get a Wi-Fi router, preferably with external antennas, and if you do have external antennas, make your antennas perpendicular to each other. So, one up, one that way. Why? Because one will transmit horizontally, and the other will grab things vertically. So if you have 3 antennas, I normally do like one like that, and then the third going like one at an angle for one of those ways. If there's 4, you know, kind of the same thing. One up, one horizontal, one angled left, one angled right. You know, so there's a lot that goes into it, and you can and the antenna, like I said, is more important than the radio. You can have a bad or a weak radio and a great antenna, and you'll do much better than having a bad antenna and a great radio. The antenna matters more than anything. And then there's also tuning the antenna, because not all antennas you get are actually tuned to the frequencies that you want. And you can easily make your own antenna as well. There's actually an equation out there that's very simple. So, the way we learned it, of course, is, you know, in our ham license was with feet. And if I remember, it's a half wave. A half wave antenna is determined by the frequency divided by 468, I think it is. So let's say... No, I think it's 468 divided by the frequency. So let's say we're looking at 144 megahertz. Wait, no. That doesn't look right. Yeah, so hold on. Equation to find half wave antenna. Okay, so okay, so it is, yeah, okay. It's 143 if you're trying to find it in meters, by the way. But yeah, it's 468 divided by the frequency. So let's say we wanted to do a half wave antenna at 2.4 gigahertz, so that'd be 2400 megahertz. You'd be looking at 0.2 inches of an antenna that you want to do for 2.4 gigahertz as a half wave. Now you can also do a full wave, so you literally just take the 468, so 468 times 2, this is for a half wave dipole, by the way. You can take the 468 times 2, which would be 936. And there you go. And then if you want a quarter wave, it's 234. Or for 144 megahertz, about 1.625 inches. So, yep. There's a lot of math that goes into it, but there's also art to it as well. There's tons of different antenna designs, and you can easily do antenna calculation, design. So let's say you wanted to do, hold on, let me see. Let's say you wanted to do a Yagi antenna calculator. A Yagi is a directional antenna. So let's see. There you go. let's say you want to optimize for 144 megahertz. You have a boom length of, let's say 3 meters. Oh. Well, so, yeah, so the boom length would be 0.672 meters. You'd get a gain approximately of 5.23 decibels there. Now, let's say I increase the amount of elements inside of it. Each of these lines here, that's an element. And you can see you can have more of a gain by more elements. But also, the diameter of the boom, and then you can see right here the actual calculation to where you want your first director, your distance of the dipole, and between them, as well as the length of, the pieces there. There's a lot that goes into antenna design. You can also do a folded dipole over here. So let's say you wanted to get at 144 megahertz. You could do that very easily. Or you want to do a straight dipole. Dipole is basically, this is a center dipole over here, both lengths. You've probably seen these kind of antennas like on your TV or stuff. So you can see, if you want to do 144 megahertz, diameter of 10 millimeters over here, length over here on each side, 501.4, with a diameter of 10 millimeters. And then you're going to want to make sure you have that gap. Like, there's a lot of math that goes into antenna design. But it's not as complicated as a lot of people make it out to be. But the antenna is the most important part of your radio. So don't skimp on the antenna. You can, like I said, cheap radio, but a good antenna will be a lot better. I have a cheap little $40 radio that I carry every day. And I have a $20 antenna that I put on top of it. And that thing can get multiple miles, and I have a folded antenna. So it actually, like, if you cut it open, it's like a tape measure. You can actually use a tape measure as an antenna. So you can actually find this tape measure antenna. And many people do this. Let me see if I can find one. Oop. Here we go. You see, he's got some PVC tube in there, so it's non-conductive, and then it's literally made of tape measures. A lot of people do these for quick little, DIY projects. You see, there's some steel clamps there, but also, he's got, grounding over there. Well, let's see, not grounding. This is how you connect the elements all together for your signal. And of course you do need to get some grounding over there, because grounding's important. But yeah, there's tons of little fun things out there. There's tons of videos, tons of guides to make antennas. I got a buddy that he does his ham radio off of just a random wire in his attic, and then he has a tuner attached to it. And the dude is able to hit Europe with his antenna. It's crazy. I'm going to eventually get my setup improved and everything, and I'm hoping to hit Europe as well from the US. With the HF, you should be able to hit up to 2,500 miles on a single skip. So 2,500 miles till it hits the atmosphere and refracts down. But there's also, time of day considerations, the sunspots, and things like that to determine radio propagation. And we're still in a great time for the solar cycle to allow for great radio propagation. We just missed the peak by a year or two, I think it was. Let me see. Solar cycle ham radio. Hold on, let me see if I can find this. Solar conditions and ham... There we go. So you can actually see there's different sites out here. So like you can see daytime conditions for 80 meter and 40 meter band. It's poor if you want to, contact over there. But during the nighttime, 80 and 40 meter are good. 12 meter to 10 meter is good during the day, but poor during the night. Like I said, there's art and science that goes into this. You have your, the K index, the different indexes that you have over there. So you have the X-ray, KP, A index, and all this plays into each other. And you can see there's a solar flux over there. But then you can also see... Trying to see the solar cycle chart. So we're at the... Was it October 2024 was the solar cycle max? Where was it? There was a chart that I remember seeing a long time ago. I can't remember where I found that chart. Hold on. See if I can find it. Oh, wait, is it from NOAA? Doip! Yep, it was NOAA. I don't know why I didn't think of NOAA immediately. But you can see... the sunspots. So you have that solar cycle over there. This is the 10.7 centimeter radio cycle. So this is what I was talking about by we're starting to come off the, peak of the solar cycle. So 2024, the cycle was so, at its best. You were getting amazing signal propagation. And if you look at it, it was actually a lot better than the last peak by a good number. So yeah, I had people telling me that in 2024 they were reaching very, very far for a lot of people. I wish I had gotten into ham around that point. I was just missing it, but we're still at a good point right now where I'm still going to be able to get some great contacts and everything, but it'll be petering out over time until the next solar cycle, which will probably be sometime, I'd say 2035. Around there. And then we'll get another peak, and then, it's just how it is. But, yeah. Radio's a fun thing to understand, and I think you really should understand it, especially if you're wanting to do networking, to understand wireless networking. Knowing a lot of this stuff, even though it's ham radio and you may not be doing the same bands, you'll understand a lot more about Wi-Fi and how it operates and be able to diagnosing issues with your signal propagation when it comes to Wi-Fi. Because I've cracked open laptops and other devices and been like, why is your Wi-Fi crap? And then I'm like, oh, your antenna's crap. That's why. Let's adjust your antenna a little bit. You'd be surprised. There's been antennas I've dealt with where cutting off a little bit of the antennas actually improved it because it's not as accurate. You also have the telescoping antennas. So you see the antennas that people extend out and then shorten. That also can have an effect on the signal propagation as well as reception of signals because of where it's tuned, because of how long or short your antenna is. So there's a lot that goes into antenna design. And as I keep saying, it is more important than the power that you're sending through the antenna. So that's why those Mesh-tastic devices do insanely well, especially if they have a tuned antenna. But like my little Mesh-tastic device, I think even on short turbo when I was at DEF CON, I was hitting people 3 miles away. Long fast, you can probably do up to 10 miles. I'm going to have my solar node probably up this weekend, and then a few weeks after I want to get into setting up my MQTT. So basically there's going to be a gateway to connect a Raspberry Pi to the internet, as I talked about in the beginning of the stream, And then I'm going to get another Meshtastic device, a LilyGo T-Beam, and I'm going to attach it to this Raspberry Pi over here. Probably have it upstairs so that I can get better signal propagation, because higher elevations are almost always better. And then that's going to basically beam down around my area. I'm probably going to cover a couple of miles that way. And then people that can connect in can connect through that MQTT gateway to have their messages actually go over the internet, so other people can receive it through the MQTT gateway in the channels and groups that we're in. And then the advantage that I'll also have with the solar node, because it'll be within range of this guy and the LilyGo T-Beam I'll set up eventually, and I'll have content covering all this in the near future as well. Is the solar node will be able to pick that up and extend it as well. The reason why I'm doing the solar node outside is to extend the mesh network range in my area and allow other people to be able to better connect people, because I noticed in my area, in my neck of the woods, there's a few people, but they're not that strong, so I want to boost the network in that area, and then it will also carry Meshtastic signals better into my house, with everything doing it that way. So, yeah, radio, tinkering, fun. We'll get more into ham radio, we'll get more into Meshtastic and such as that over time, but for now, it's getting late, guys. I love you all. Stay safe and happy hacking. Make sure, if you haven't already, to follow me on all of my socials. I have the links in bio. I'm on Twitch, TikTok, Discord, Twitch, TikTok, Mastodon, Blue Sky, YouTube, Kick. And then I also do have the Discord and the Matrix servers as well for chatting. You are all welcome to join. The links are in the bio. Stay safe. Stick around for the raid if you're over on Twitch, and happy hacking, everyone. I will see you all Sunday. Don't forget there's movie night Saturday on Discord as well, but stay safe. Happy hacking.